Today, we're going to be taking a peek at some of the most vile and disgusting FNAF fan games the community has ever made. From gross storylines, nasty visuals, to absolutely disgusting predatory creators. This video has it all. Grab a snack and get ready. It's pretty normal for me to get suggestions for games to play, and especially so when a new FNAF fan game gets released. However, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Never throughout my entire YouTube career has a game been requested as frequently as the one we'll be covering today, and for a good reason. The game we'll be covering today is Forgotten at Fredbear's, the latest and greatest FNAF fan game in this ever-growing genre. Strap in, everybody. This game has a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and you will soon see why it's so hyped up. However, I feel it does have one big downside, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Before we can start talking about what this game has to offer in terms of an actual gameplay loop, we first have to talk about what happens before the game even begins, that being the opening cutscene.
I've done security work before, Mr. Afton. But this, the hours, the pay, it doesn't add up. Why me? You are reliable, John. That's all I need. A reliable man who does his job. The previous night guards will tell you everything you need to know. Do not concern yourself with the rest.
You always knew how to cover your tracks, didn't you, William? But I know what you've done. I've always known. It's not revenge. It's justice. Justice for her. I won't let her be forgotten.
Alright, so already we've got a lot to unpack. To start, I'm assuming that we'll be playing as the guy William was talking to, John. William is hiring a new guard, but as you can already tell by the sinister look on his face, he clearly has some ulterior motives. Henry is pretty pissed, and should be. William did kill his daughter after all, but I wonder if there's any proof of that murder actually happening. Afterwards, we're booted into an 8-bit minigame with a beautiful art style. Holy shit, this pixel art and animation is phenomenal. In it, we play as Evan, William's son, the crying child. However, instead of Evan getting bullied by the teenagers, Evan witnesses Charlotte being bullied by them instead. They push her outside into the freezing rain and Evan follows after her, only to watch William, his father, approach her and kill her in the alley. Evan runs back inside to Henry, Charlotte's father, and tells him what he saw. During their conversation, we can see the security puppet bolt past them in the direction of the exit door Charlotte got pushed out of, and this minigame comes to a close. So wow, this early in the game and we already saw the death of the first child. Should be kind of crazy out here, I suppose. Anyways, moving on to talking about night one and what this game really has to offer. The first thing I want to point out is how beautiful this game looks, especially when it comes to lighting. The designers of this game absolutely nailed the atmosphere of this game, and trust me, it only gets better the further down the rabbit hole we fall. The controls of this game are really a masterpiece, I can't lie. In my FNAF Rewritten 87 video, I mentioned how much I hated the way the mouse controlled, and how it was probably my biggest issue with the game. I cannot make the same complaint about Forgotten at Fredbear's. This just might be the most satisfying and responsive mouse controls I've ever felt while playing a FNAF game before. You wouldn't think you'd really notice a difference between FNAF games, but when you play as many as I do, it will be something you pick up on really quickly, and I really appreciate the devs of this game for nailing this so perfectly. Anyways, what about the tools at our disposal? Well, this game keeps it pretty simple. In our office, we have two entrances, I think. I know the door to our left is an entrance, but I'm also pretty sure that this big blurry thing in front of us is also a door, and this is corroborated by the way the camera map is set up as well. You can walk up to the door on your left, but just doing so will make it seem like it doesn't do anything at all. It will become very apparent what this door does once we start talking about one of the threats this night introduces. Of course, this game also has a camera system, as I already mentioned, and it comes equipped with several speakers to play music over. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. Before we start talking about threats, I think we should talk about this night's phone call and why I feel it's so weird. There are actually 2 phone guys, and each of their names are Joe, referring to themselves as Joe A and Joe M. They mention what we'll be doing throughout the night, but who cares about that? They also mentioned the disappearance of Charlotte and how it affected Henry. Apparently, now he's just hiding out in the basement. The Joes said they snuck into the basement to see him, but were caught and thrown onto the day shift, which is why we're on the night shift now. Very, very interesting and intriguing stuff. And if we don't figure out what's down there, I think I might tear my foreskin off. I think I should also make it clear that Henry is under the impression that William is on the night shift, so it appears William hiring us is a type of cover-up for something. Maybe that's why he looked so sinister. So, time to talk about the 2 threats this night introduces. To begin, we'll talk about Spring Bonnie. Another quick thing I want to mention is the character designs these animatronics have. They all look super sleek, but Jesus Christ, are they uncanny and terrifying looking. If I were a kid coming to these restaurants, I don't think I'd ever want to come back. These things are scary as fuck. Anyways, what does Spring Bonnie do? Well, he makes use of that left door I mentioned earlier. He will make his way around the cameras and to said door. He will then literally push it open. And I think you'll enjoy watching what you have to do for yourself next. Oh my God. What the fuck? Yo, that's fucked up. That's so fucked up that you just did that to me. Tell me that's not the coolest fucking thing you've ever seen. They're straight up tossing in some after hours at Cody's level timing shit, and I'm all for it. It really adds to the stress and tension that the actual employee would be feeling during this moment. I think it adds so much to the atmosphere and really makes it feel like you're part of the experience. The next threat this night introduces is the security puppet, easily one of the most uncomfortable looking characters to come out of this game. The way she works is very simple, but that doesn't make her mechanic stop me from blowing my foreskin up like a balloon and making some balloon animals out of it. The puppet will come out of the prize corner and attempt to get to your office. However, instead of having a bullshit music box, she instead is just attracted to the sound of music. Most of the cameras on the map have a music button I mentioned earlier. If you hold down one of these buttons, music will begin to play. However, only so much music can be played on each camera. You'll be able to see the music draining on the button, so you'll have to use it sparingly. If you play the music on a camera adjacent to the camera the puppet is on, the puppet will be dragged into that camera. Continue doing this to pull the puppet away from your office, and make sure you're keeping track of how much boof juice is in your music boxes, and you'll be a-okay. Something you'll notice is that this night ends at 3 a.m. I thought that was really weird, but guess what? We're not even close to being done talking about the first night, as we're thrown into a repair minigame after completing the main part of that night. In this vent area, there are 4 vents, 1 on each side of you. Ignore how we even got to this position. I'm assuming we just climbed through one of the vents possibly. The goal of this minigame is to repair each of the 4 vents by doing a different minigame for each. But before we talk about these minigames, let's talk about the 2 threats we'll have to deal with at the same time. The first and most annoying threat is Balloon Boy, because of fucking course it is. He can come through 3 of the 4 vents. You'll notice one of the vents has a door you can close on it. This vent will be reserved for the other character this night introduces, so Balloon Boy can travel through the other 3. Balloon Bitch will be laughing constantly to inform you as to which vent he is going to try and come through. Once he gets close, simply flash your light at him and he'll dive back into the hellhole he came from. The other threat in this minigame is Mangle. Mangle works in much the same way as Balloon Boy, except she can only attack the vent that has the door. She makes sound cues as well, and when the sound cue she makes is very loud, that's how you know she's about to attack. Quickly turn to her vent and hold the vent closed. Once she stops banging on it, you're free to let go and continue fixing the vents. Speaking of fixing vents, how exactly do you do that? Very simple. Just kidding, each vent has a different minigame. The first vent will have you match several symbols multiple times over. This minigame is obviously super simple, but do keep in mind you will be being attacked by 2 dickheads at the same time. Once you complete this minigame enough, you can move on to the next. The next minigame has you playing Simon Says. Easily the most frustrating of the 4 minigames for one main reason. You cannot drop the maintenance panel until the system has stopped showing you the Simon Says panels. So, if you hear Mangle about to rape your shit, you'll have to wait until the panel very slowly shows you all 5 squares you have to memorize before you can deal with her. You then have to hope to God you remember the pattern as you turn back, because if you fuck up, your repair percentage will drop and you'll be stuck doing this minigame for even longer. The next minigame is Simple Sugar. Every few seconds, a letter will appear. All you have to do is press that letter on your keyboard. Do this enough times, and we can talk about the final minigame. The final minigame blows a bit of dick. You will have 2 bars with 2 small rectangles at random points on them. Clicking and holding a bar will make it start to fill up. If you let go, the bar will slowly decrease. You have to get both bars to be inside of their small rectangles at the same time, and do this several times for the minigame to end. This isn't by any means a difficult minigame, it just makes my dick hurt and my blood pressure rise. But if you can complete all 4 minigames, Night 1 will officially be completed. That's right, that was all only Night 1. Hooray! Hooray!
I let you take the night shift. I thought the other guards were too curious. I told you I trusted you to handle things. So go ahead, play a little card. But I know what you did, and I'll be the one who will deal with you. Our creations will be your undoing. I know the truth, and I won't let you live after what you did to my girl. I know what you are capable of. I'm sorry, old friend.
Well, would you look at that? Henry appears to be tampering with the animatronics to make them more hostile to attack William, since obviously Henry is aware that he killed his daughter. However, what Henry doesn't know is that William isn't actually working the night shift like he said he was. William is 3 steps ahead. He knew Henry would do something like this, so he lied to Henry that he'd be taking the night shift and hired us in his place. This is actually some really cool light Yagami type storytelling. I actually really like it. Now, moving on to Night 2, we have the night segment to talk about, and the new threat that this night introduces. The little whiny, annoying bitch himself, Balloon Boy. Balloon Boy's mechanics are honestly pretty simple. You just need to have some decent reaction time. Balloon Boy will move around the cameras at complete random, so tracking him just doesn't even matter at all. At random times, he will enter one of your 2 vents. A very loud, obvious sound cue will play when he does so. A few seconds after you hear the sound cue, he will drop down from any of the 2 vents on your office ceiling. All you have to do is click whichever vent he's in, but you do have to be very fast since you will not have a lot of time to click on him. Once you click him, he'll crawl back into the vent like the disgusting little fucking nematode he is, and then his cycle will repeat. In all honesty, I like Balloon Boy's mechanic. Reaction-based mechanics are always something I'll favor since it's just something I feel I'm better at. However, I do have a complaint with the response of this mechanic. Let's use Spring Bonnie as an example. When you properly hit a timing during Spring Bonnie's attack, there is a visual indicator that you did so. Obviously, that being Spring Bonnie recoiling from you slamming on the door. This gives the user positive reinforcement that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing properly. Visual indicators are always very important things to have in your games for responses to the player's actions to let them know that the actions they are performing are intended. Balloon Boy has 0 visual indication that you are dealing with him. Not only does this make dealing with him feel super unsatisfying every time you do it, but it can also be very confusing when you're first learning the mechanic. Let me give you the most basic example of a visual response indicator for those of you that don't want to do anything fancy. When you hover over the door to your office, your mouse changes to this sprite to indicate that yes, this is something that can be interacted with. Even this is enough of an indicator to let the player know what they should and shouldn't be trying to interact with. When Balloon Boy drops down from your vent, when you hover over the vent, not even this mouse change is present. Even though you are supposed to click on the vent, they give no visual indicator that you're supposed to do so. And when you do click on the vent, nothing seems to happen, as Balloon Boy will finish out his animation before closing the vent behind him and leaving. So when you click it, it literally feels like nothing happened at all. Is this a nitpick? Of course it is. However, I feel it's these little details that matter the most. When small things like UI and visual indicators are done properly, you won't even realize they're done properly at all, but you will realize when they're done poorly. Anyways, enough talking about that. Now it's time to talk about this night's post-night section, wherein instead of repairing the vents, this time around we're repairing Fredbear. This section is miles easier than the last. All we have to do is take Fredbear's head off, which you have to do very slowly or he will give you a rim job, which I'm personally just not a fan of. Afterwards, you'll have to remove his eyes. However, you can only remove them while they're moving or else he'll see you and
Playing your butt like a sandbox.
After that, get replacement eyes and put them and his head back on. Next, open his chest and do an Among Us wire and electrical task on his back. They even put symbols for all my other brothers who are colorblind, which I really appreciate. Put his chest back on and there's only one thing left to do. Run some diagnostics like we're Dr. House. Spoiler alert, it's not lupus. These are kind of like the salvage mini games from Pizzeria Simulator. You'll have to play some sounds that correlate to each of Fredbear's body parts. If at any point he starts twitching like a drug addict, stop holding the button, or he'll hold your butt and squeeze way too hard for your liking. After you finish that, night 2 is complete and we move on to night 3, but not before seeing something a little interesting on our screen. Oh shit, we got a crying bitch, dude. Get your ass up. Yeah, that's right. Get your ass up. He's home again. Did you hear the door, Evan? You saw her, didn't you? Charlie, bleeding. I didn't mean to see. I just wanted to check up on her. But you did see. You saw what he really is. He wears a smile in the daylight, but you know. You didn't forget. I don't want to remember. Too late. You know what happened to your sister, Evan? She's at Mom's. She's just visiting. No, she's not. Do you really think you're safe here with him? Lie still tonight. Don't speak. For next time, he'll open the door. No. Please don't be him. Oh. Evan, there you are, bud. Wanted to check on you. Your birthday's coming up. Got something really special planned. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Been quiet lately. Everything okay? Just tired. Alright. Get some rest then. He's lying. You saw it. Charlotte. The alley. His hands. Henry's gone. We don't know why. You can't let him get away with this, Evan. Stop. Stop talking. You remember. And he can't know that. Ooh, shit. Night 3 only introduces one new threat, and I honestly don't feel like they're that much of an issue. But before we talk about that new threat, we need to talk about the insane phone call we got to hear. Joe A mentions that Henry was working on something that would make the animatronics be able to be controlled remotely, and they heard about it right after we noticed that Fredbear was tampered with, which was seen at the end of the post-Night 2 repair section. When Joe A mentions this, Joe M gets incredibly angry, and we hear the following crash out of epic proportions.
Joe! What the hell are you going on about? That's enough! Focus on the job, not on things that don't concern us.
Right. Sorry about that. I don't know. With Henry still missing and all, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what was he really up to? And there's the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opening up later this year.
Joe, I said that's enough! We're not here to talk about that. Stick to the script. We're here to help him survive, not gossip like old ladies. Or do you want him to end up like the others?
No, of course not. I just...
So, clearly they both are aware of something we're not. And from this point forward, Joe M is going to be a character I'm not a super big fan of in the slightest. But we can talk more about Joe M later. For now, let's talk about the new threat this night introduces. That new threat being Foxy, which turns out it was not Mangle in the vent, it was just Foxy, but he was all mangled. So it was basically fucking Mangle. Foxy is a character I was originally concerned was going to be a big pain in the dick, but again, I actually don't think that it's that big of a deal at all. Foxy is obviously in Pirate's Cove on stage. Every so often, you will be able to see him leaning forward, signifying he's about to sprint to your office like Tyson Gay and dig inside you like Scottie Pippins. When you see him leaning forward like this, all you have to do is close the curtains remotely for a bit until he calms down, then reopen them. You may be wondering, Dxtr, why don't we just keep the curtains closed the entire night? That's a very good question, and is actually the question I had when playing this night. But turns out, Foxy does not like it at all when the curtain is closed. And if it happens to be closed for too long, he'll grab the curtains with his butt cheeks and rip the bitches open to force his way to your office. And I think we can all agree that that is a fate we don't want to have happen. What I personally found was the best strategy as of now was to force pull the puppet to Foxy's camera and just camp the cameras constantly. Since there's no power, I don't have to worry about it. And Spring Bonnie and Balloon Boy make sound cues when they attack, so that made it really easy to know when I needed to drop the cameras. Eventually, the music box in Pirate's Cove would run out, and when it did, I'd just drag the puppet to the prize corner and keep him there for the remainder of the night. If you recall, each night only goes until 3 AM, so this actually makes it very, very easy to conserve your music boxes. I just really hope that the puppet doesn't get ass-clenchingly fast by the end of this game. Of course, after we reach 3 AM, we can move on to the post-night section, which has us restocking a supply closet, with Joe M on the phone with us, talking it through. It's during this section where we begin to hear how much of an asshole Joe M really is, as throughout this section, as he's explaining what to do, the tone in his voice is very clearly aggressive.
The closet light and don't move.
Gotcha.
Not even a single twitch. Got it?
I got it. Damn, bitch.
Let's stock the shelves fast and clean.
It's the goal, asshole. Anyways, on to what we actually have to do during this section. Throughout it, we will get deliveries of boxes outside of the closet door, consisting of things like duct tape, paper towel, tissues, and some other shit as well. Joe M will tell us the very oddly specific places on the shelf where we need to place each item. Which, by the way, I don't know why where we place things is so goddamn important, but clearly to Joe M, it is. Of course, that's not all we have to do, as Fredbear and Spring Bonnie will be trying to enter our insides, like those fucked up little crack addicts who decide diving face first into a cave called Tight Squeeze Death Trap that has a survival rate of 0%, knowing damn well they have a wife and 3 kids back at home. Each character behaves slightly differently, and will require a different form of defense. If you ever see Spring Bonnie at your door, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on his face until he runs away. Fredbear is a little different. If you see him at your door, you have to shut the light off to the closet and hold completely still until you hear his big fat feet waddling away. Then you can turn the light back on and continue. After you stock every item and fill the shelves up, Joe M abruptly hangs up on us. No goodbye.
Closet stocked. You're done.
Good. Why is he such a dude? Why is he such a dickhead? I have no idea what got into him. He's acting like we're the ones who brought up Henry's new experiment on the phone. It's not my problem, asshole. Anyways, on to night 4.
I don't care. Take care of Joe A. He's gonna get us all in trouble. Hey, champ. You like the yellow ones or the red ones better? You know, I didn't get a party like this when I was your age. Back then, we didn't have animatronics singing our name.
I don't want them to sing to me.
Come on, you'll love it. All your friends will be here. It's going to be perfect.
Do I have to go?
It's only a few more days.
Evan clearly is not a fan of the restaurant. I wonder why. Considering what he saw, there's not so much to talk about in the night section of night 4. However, there are 2 things I still want to mention. The first being the absence of Joe A. Obviously, in that cutscene, William says to get rid of him, and Joe M on the phone call says we won't be seeing him again. He also continues being an asshole throughout the call as well, and ends the call abruptly. No goodbye, dick. Anyways, the second thing I want to talk about is obviously the threat this night introduces. The man, the myth, the fat bastard himself, Fredbear. In all honesty, I think Fredbear is a pretty disappointing character in this game, as he is quite literally pretty much just Balloon Boy. Fredbear will wander through your cameras and eventually make his way to the 2 big doors in front of you in your office. When he walks through these doors, all you have to do is stare at him and not move. After a few seconds and some hallucinations saying he hurt us, Fredbear will exit the office. Literally just Balloon Boy with less steps, because you don't even have to click on him. But in all honesty, I think this game shines way more in the post-night minigames rather than the actual night segments, which I actually think is pretty cool. So speaking of, what happens during Night 4's post-night minigame? Well, we actually get to hear from Joe A again. He begins his message by saying if we're hearing him now, then that means something terrible happened to him. So basically, somebody murked my homeboy, and I'm gonna figure out who it is. Mark my words, when I do, I'm gonna grab their balls and squeeze them so hard they burst into little pieces, bursting his 2 balls into 38 tiny balls. Don't play with me. In this minigame, we get to speak directly to the puppet. Joe A tells us that we should never repeat to anyone what the puppet is about to say to us. There are some pre-selected questions that we'll have to ask her, and through her answers, we learn that she's Charlotte, the girl William killed in the alley, and the girl that Evan found, Henry's daughter. She mentions William, Henry, and the basement that she says nobody was supposed to enter. However, Henry has been in the basement a lot recently, obviously working on whatever he's doing to kill William. The puppet tells us that she has the key and ends the minigame by giving it to us, telling me that the final minigame we'll play will take place in that basement. However, this minigame isn't just talking to the puppet, as there are 2 major threats we have to deal with while doing so. Obviously, one of them is the puppet herself. While she's having the conversation with us, Joe A told us that she's very unstable. So if she ever starts to quiver in her boots, we'll have to use the music box to calm her down. The second threat during this minigame is Foxy. He will eventually wander into the prize corner with us, attempting to lick up the nape of our neck. He has several positions he can be seen in. If at any point he starts twitching like a drug addict, you'll have to pull the spring lock override switch to reset him. However, resetting him will also cause the puppet to go crazy mode, and you'll have to immediately use the music box to calm her down again. After we get the key from Charlotte, we can move on to Night 5. Speaking of night, there is a metric fuck ton to talk about, so let's waste no time. To start, the night section is just a harder version of Night 4, so we can completely skip over that as it's not interesting at all. However, the post-night minigame is something crazy.
These machines were meant to be the future, William. The start of something new. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. A place where children can laugh again. A place where you and I could have built something good.
And just like that, we've entered the basement where the original 4 animatronics are present and ready to eat our bussy. This minigame feels very reminiscent of Night 1's post-night vent minigame, where we have 4 different tasks to complete while being attacked. Each task we have to complete relates to one of the characters. Each has a different task we have to perform, while that task's respective character tries to insert itself inside of us. To start, let's begin with the main office area. There is a notepad on our desk that explains in detail how to deal with each character, but I'll be doing that for you, so we're going to ignore that part. What is important is this code on the bottom line, which gives us a termination code for each animatronic. After completing their task, we'll have to type this code into the computer to disengage them. While in the office, each animatronic has the chance to appear. When they do, just hide under the desk until they go away. Alright, so let's talk about Bonnie's minigame first. In it, there are several wires like it's Among Us. While looking at the panel, every century it feels like a symbol will appear on a small screen. You then have to cut the wire that shares that symbol. Cut the wrong one and Bonnie has a field day with you. Also, Bonnie is fat as shit. Occasionally, Bonnie will appear in the room with you. When he does, all you have to do is stare at him and hold your flashlight in his eyes, blinding him like when I was a kid and would stare at the sun for too long, or when I'd put the flashlight right up to my eyeball and turn it on. After you cut all the wires and disable him on the computer, we can move on to Chica.
But I know what you did. To her. To Charlie. You stood there and you watched the light go out of her eyes, didn't you? My little girl. And you took her from me. I thought if I gave these machines a greater purpose, if I made them strong enough, smart enough, maybe they could end you. Maybe they could give her peace.
Chica's tasks requires you to wait for 300 years for a fuck ton of switches to light up in a specific order, flicking them on after they light up. Meanwhile, Chica will slowly be approaching you through the hallway. When she gets close, all you have to do is close the door until she leaves. Once you've flipped every switch and disabled her on the computer, it's time to move on to Foxy.
Fredbear wasn't enough. Neither were the others upstairs. You slipped through again, like you always do. So I turned to the prototypes. Stronger, smarter, obedient only to me. Never to you.
Foxy's minigame is by far the best in terms of it not taking 6,000 light years to complete. All you have to do is spin this crank in a circle more than I throw my ass in a circle when I play a FNAF game with no power and no music box. While you do this, Foxy will slowly appear out from behind the curtains. All you have to do is occasionally pull them closed and he won't be able to get you. Terminate him on the PC and we can move on to Freddy.
I rewrote their code, set their purpose. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica. The ones buried down here. They were meant for you, William. To tear you apart, piece by piece, until nothing is left.
Freddy makes me want to die, easily being the most annoying character in this entire minigame. All you have to do is hold down a lever while a meter very painstakingly slowly fills up. Occasionally, Freddy will enter the room, and all you have to do is stare at him and not move until he goes away. The only problem with this section of this minigame is that it literally takes like 5 fucking minutes. It's ridiculous. Of course, terminate him on the computer, and the night is over, giving us this final, insane cutscene. It's a pretty long one, but you're not going to want to miss it.
I can't forgive you. Not for Charlie. Not for Elizabeth. Not for any of them. I don't know how, but you seem to destroy everything you touch. I want you to remember her face. Remember what you stole. Because everything I've built since that night has been for her. You will die here, William. And you will suffer.
Thank you for getting rid of them for me. But I can't let you walk out of here with all that, John. Nothing personal.
It's Evan's birthday, and all of the kids and William are standing around us. Henry enters and mentions he needs to talk to William. William, being in the spring Bonnie costume at the time, agrees and they head into the back room. Evan goes to follow them, but Michael drags him to Fredbear to do exactly what you'd think. I'll let the rest of the cutscene speak for itself, because it is truly one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Well, look who finally decided to come home. You're here about Charlie. Of course you are. Why'd you do it? You really don't know. It wasn't just about her. It was about you. What? You had everything. The money, the awards, your name on every goddamn news article. Henry Emily, the genius behind Fredbear's. You were the face of the future. I was just the man behind the curtain, building your dreams. You had a wife who loved you, kids who adored you, and Charlie. God, she looked at you as if you hung the stars. Meanwhile, my wife left. Michael hated me. Evan feared me. And Elizabeth.
Elizabeth got too close to one of my creations, and I just let it happen. Because that's what I do, Henry. Everything I build turns to rot. But you kept building a dream. So I tore it down. I took something you'd never get back. Not because I had to, but because I could. I wanted you to wake up like I do. Empty.
Come on. Give him a big old birthday kiss.
Oh, he's gonna cry again. She was just a child. Evan.
Holy shit. William went to save his child from Fredbear, but Henry remotely causes the spring lock failure while William was out in the open in front of everyone, in front of his 2 children. The spring lock failure happens in public where there are plenty of people to see, and as far as I can tell, it's not even confirmed if the bite happens. This was easily the most shocking cutscene I've ever seen from any FNAF game, and you can see my reaction to it over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Finally, we see the locked FNAF 4 box. We get the bad ending. There's something we're missing. And don't worry, we're going to get it. Throughout this game, several crumpled notes can be found in various locations. Collecting all 6 of them will allow us to see what's inside of the box. So let's go over each location where you can find them. The first page is on night 1. It'll be directly on your desk. It reads, Evan keeps crying every night. He says he's seeing things moving at Fredbear's when nobody's there. Ever since Charlie went missing, he's been acting weird. The second page is found inside of one of the vents during the post-night 1 minigame. However, it doesn't appear immediately. You will have to wait for a little bit before it'll actually show up, which is a bit weird. Regardless, it reads, It's kind of funny how that balloon boy animatronic looks like me when I was little. I think Dad's trying to mess with me. He said it's a reminder of his favorite troublemaker. The third note can be found on the floor of the back room during the Repair Fredbear minigame. It reads, Henry hasn't shown up in a while. When I asked Dad, he started acting mysterious again. Reminds me of when Mom took Liz and left. Dad won't even talk about it. The fourth page is found during the stockpiling shelves minigame. After stocking the pizza boxes and the paper towel rolls, in the hallway you'll be able to find it on the floor. It reads, The new Freddy's place is supposed to have a Pirate Foxy animatronic. I told Dad that one's gonna be my favorite. The fifth page is found during the Speaking to the Puppet minigame. If you turn around where Foxy stands, you'll be able to see it on the shelf. It reads, My favorite employee, Joe A, got fired today. Kinda sucks. He was pretty cool. Used to sneak me extra tokens when Dad wasn't around. At least we still have the other Joe, but he's been acting weird lately. The final note is found in the basement night. If you go to Chica's room, on a chair next to the wall is where the note lays. It reads, Me and the guys are planning something for Evan's birthday. We're gonna make him see that Fredbear's isn't scary. He needs to toughen up. Through these notes, it's very obvious that they were all written by Michael Afton. And that last note is especially eerie, confirming that the act that ends up getting Evan killed was premeditated. Now granted, clearly from this note we see they weren't trying to harm him, and it's framed in this game that Michael actually really cares about Evan and wants him to be tougher and not so scared of Fredbear's like we know he is. And nothing confirms this more than the true ending. After collecting all 6 notes, we'll be able to open the FNAF 4 box, and we get to hear from Michael himself. now completely alone with no family left.
Evan, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm so sorry. I didn't think you would go that far. I didn't think that you were always scared of that place, and I made it worse. I thought maybe you'd laugh, or at least see it wasn't real. Dad's gone. Right after it happened, his body disappeared, just vanished. Now it's just me. I didn't mean to hurt you, Evan. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted you to stop crying. To stop being afraid. But I messed up. I'm gonna fix it. I don't know how yet, but I will. I'll stay here. I will put you back together, and then I'm gonna go find him. I'm going to go find Dad. Wherever he is. I don't care how long it takes. Effing just don't leave me too.
So, here we learn what will motivate Michael to do what he did in the first 2 Click Team games. After the springlock failure, William's body disappeared, implying that, as he always says, he always comes back. Michael sets out on his quest to find his father, and Forgotten at Fredbear's comes to a close. Overall, I think Forgotten at Fredbear's is an insanely good retelling of the origin story of what started all the conflict in Five Nights at Freddy's. It's easy to follow, yet there are several little things you can pick up on early in the game that hint towards what's going to happen, and I love that. I do think that the night section gameplay mechanics are pretty weak, and I do believe that the post-night sections are where this game truly shines. I want you to think about the last time you've played a FNAF fan game that has introduced a mechanic you've never seen before. Maybe you think of Junior's deduction game mechanic. Maybe you think of Teelerland's upgrade system. Or maybe you dig really deep and think of One Night at Flumpties 3 moving camera buttons. Whatever it may be, I'm sure you can agree that seeing a new mechanic is always interesting, and in my opinion is the most enjoyable part of playing FNAF games. I love exploring what people can come up with. Even if the new mechanics are frustrating, I still love them. The game we'll be covering today introduces a mechanic like nothing I've ever seen before. A game so obscure I'd never heard of it, and I'm willing to bet you've never heard of it either. The game we'll be covering today is After Hours at Cody's, a so far one-off FNAF fan game that introduces one of the most interesting game mechanics I've ever seen, while also telling one of the most gruesome and depraved stories I've ever witnessed. You're not going to want to miss what we have in store today, so let's dive into the world of After Hours at Cody's. Before each night, we get a small cutscene to show us a little bit of what we're getting into. In the Night 1 cutscene, we see a mysterious black figure cause one of the animatronics to awaken. And I'm not gonna lie, the animatronic that wakes up is a bit of a bad bitch, I'm not gonna lie to you. But with that, we do start Night 1. Night 1 obviously introduces one threat. But before we can start talking about that threat, we need to talk about the mechanic in this game that makes it so unique. The cameras. Taking a look at them, you'll notice that there's a long bar in the center of the map with one small section of it being red and a small rectangle quickly moving back and forth across it. If you haven't figured out what these cameras are about to do yet, then let me tell you. When you switch cameras, you will need to time the camera switch up with when the small moving rectangle is inside of the red bar. If you mistime it, then the camera you clicked on will load very slowly. And this is a very fast-paced game. If you time it properly, the camera will load almost instantly. This is such an interesting mechanic that I originally thought I was going to hate. But it's because of this mechanic that I've actually put After Hours at Cody's in my top 5 favorite FNAF fan games of all time. But the timing doesn't only relate to how fast your cameras load. If that was all it did, then this mechanic would be pretty lackluster overall. It also plays a much more integral role with a core mechanic of the game: the power. Your power drains pretty quickly in this game. However, there is a way to recharge it, and unlike in most FNAF games where you can recharge power, it's surprisingly not done by holding down a fucking button like a music box. Thank dick. This time around, it's also tied to the timing mechanic in the cameras. Every time you properly time a camera switch, a small battery multiplier will increase by 1 at the bottom of the camera. The higher that multiplier is, the more power will increase, with a maximum multiplier of 30. However, if you don't properly time a switch fast enough, then the multiplier will start to quickly decrease. So constantly switching cameras is a must. I think this is easily one of the most unique mechanics I've ever seen. It adds a level of skill that most other FNAF games just don't have. Most FNAF games' skill ceilings are marked by your reflexes. This one is marked by your rhythm, and I think that's awesome. But anyways, onto the threat this night introduces: Bad Bitch Bella. Or as this game calls her, Bella the Beaver. I think my name is a little bit better though, personally. Bad Bitch Bella has a very simple motive: walk to your office, put a collar on you, and walk you like a dog. You guys can feel free to defend yourself from her, which I will explain how to do in a moment, but I for one will already be on my hands and knees by the time she enters the office. She will try to enter your office through camera 5 or your right door. In camera 5, she'll have 2 stages. One where she's far away from the camera, and another where she's much closer. Once she moves to her second phase, you will have to use your camera's alarm system, which, lucky us, is also tied to the timing mechanic. When you press the alarm button, if you don't time it with the red bar, the audio will not play and you'll have to wait for your alarm to charge back up. When you use the alarm on Bad Bitch Bella, she will look at the camera. When she does, all you have to do is close your door, and eventually she will go back to the stage. If you don't use the alarm on her, she will pound on your door and drain a lot of power before leaving, and then Operation Walk You Like a Dog will be set in motion. Very easy character to explain 2 very important mechanics in this game. I think After Hours at Cody's Night 1 is a great example of properly introducing your game's core mechanics in a way that isn't confusing or overwhelming. Plus, you made the character really hot for no reason at all. This is a children's establishment. Why are the characters hot? That's something I'll never be able to wrap my head around. Now, how do we actually complete the night? Surviving until 6 a.m., Dxtr? You fucking retard? Whoa. Hey now. The people in my comments don't like it when you say that word. Do better, retard. Anyways, no. Surviving until 6 a.m. is not how you complete a night in this game. After Hours at Cody's opts to use a task-based completion system. Now everyone hold your breath, because this could either make or break this game depending on how shitty the tasks are. You can exhale. It's okay. The task is mundane. However, it plays into the game's core mechanic, so it actually makes for a very satisfying gameplay loop. Remember that black figure that brought the bad bitch back to life? Well, that character is known in this game as the Anomaly. And judging by that name alone, I'm willing to bet you can guess what this guy is going to do and what the task system in this game is. The Anomaly has a random chance to appear on any of the cameras in your game at any time. If at any point you find him, you will have to use your alarm on the camera that he's on. When you do, your Anomaly counter will go up. After you find him 10 times, the night will be over. You do have to note that he will not always be on a camera, and if you don't find him fast enough when he appears, he will not stay on a camera forever and will eventually leave. Again, overall this mechanic is pretty boring, but because of how well it ties into the timing mechanic, it serves as one of the most enjoyable FNAF experiences I've ever had. But now on to night 2, except I lied because we actually have a cutscene to talk about first.
My dear friends, the worst has come to pass. As many of you may already know, my brother, Darren, has not been found since his disappearance earlier this year. He meant the world to me, as I'm sure he did to plenty of you too. His astounding creativity and infallible craftsmanship became the source of so so many wonderful memories for children all across the country. These moments we shared will remain evergreen to me for as long as I live. Before I continue, though, I'd like to show you this. A child at Cody's gave this to me once when I was visiting the restaurant. Wonderful, isn't it? This creativity we inspire. As it pains me to say, I do understand the suspicion people may have had toward me in the months following my brother's disappearance. But please, I urge you all to understand how these events have weighed heavy on me. He was my family too. The threats I've received since then caused me to think about my place in all this. I know I may not have been the most communicative or involved between the two of us, but I still did hold so much love for the work we did together. All this is to say that I will be stepping down as proprietor of Cody & Co. I've had a long and fulfilling career, and I only hope that the kindness I've shown will continue to reflect on the company as I look forward to finding someone new to handle the reins. But until then, I hope only to leave this company in a better state than it currently remains. If my being a part of this only serves to obstruct the joy and wonder that my brother and I wish to impart, then perhaps it is best if I step down and let the magic live on without me. Thank you for everything. I genuinely had a wonderful time.
So, we have two brothers that started this company together, and one of them tragically died. Now, I'm no FNAF expert. Okay, maybe I am a little. I think we're all smart enough to know that the pain in this guy's voice is definitely a little bit sussy. I'm not pointing any fingers here, but if it comes out that his brother is the one who killed him, I would not be surprised in the slightest. Anyways, on to night 2. By the way, if you were curious as to how this game explains the anomaly, well, the phone guy blatantly tells us that we're ghost hunting. Everyone that works in this building knows about this thing and what it can do, and we were more so hired to remove it. If I signed up for a night watch job and got told that, I would walk out of that building before the poor bastard could even hang up. Night 2 introduces one new threat, Morris, who also introduces the last major mechanic this game has to talk about, the curtain behind you. I haven't actually mentioned it so far, but yes, you can turn around in your office to find a curtain. It vaguely reminds me of the curtain from those nights at Rachel's. However, this game isn't mind-numbingly boring like that one is. Morris will slowly creep out from behind the curtains throughout the night. Occasionally, you'll have to turn around and force him back. However, unlike most curtain mechanics like this, it isn't just pulling them closed or holding your light on it. After Hours at Cody's needs to get a little bit quirky. Introducing probably the most frustrating mechanic in the entire game. Next to the curtains, you'll see 4 buttons. Each button has a color. You might be thinking, Dxtr, I'm looking at them and not a single one of them has a color. Well, you see, dear viewer, that's what I thought too. However, no, they do indeed have a color. You just can't see which color each button is until you press it, which I think is very stupid. Morris has 5 phases before jump scaring you. The first phase is the phase you'll mostly see him in. All you'll be able to see is his nose. This is the furthest back that he can be, so if he looks like this, you're all good. The next 4 phases each correspond to one of those buttons. So depending on how close he is to ganking you, you will have to select the correct colored button and then flash your light on him to make him go back to phase 1. What do the buttons mixed with the flashlight have to do with sending him back? I really have no idea. And in all honesty, I think this is easily the weakest part of the entire game. But that's not where my frustration with Morris ends. No, not at all. Believe it or not, turning around in your office can be a frustrating experience for literally no reason whatsoever. How, you might be asking? Well, I'd be more than happy to explain it to you. Let's say you're facing towards your doors. Bad bitch Bella is at your door, so for now, the door is closed. While this door is closed, apparently Beth, the name of our player, gets fucking glued to the goddamn ground and is unable to move an inch. Because if either one of your doors are closed, you will be unable to turn around to check on Morris. How does this make any sense at all? It literally fucking doesn't. And that's not all. It gets even more frustrating. Let's imagine you're facing Morris. You press a button and flash your light to send him back. Now it's time to turn around and start filling up our power in the camera again. But uh-oh, fucker! You forgot to press the button you already fucking pressed. Because if any of the buttons are currently toggled on, you can't turn around. Why? Who the fuck knows? I love this game a lot, but holy shit, this is one of the most retarded things I've ever seen. It doesn't make any sense at all. Well, whatever. It's frustrating, it's stupid, but I didn't let it ruin my experience with the rest of this amazing game. Speaking of, let's move on to the post-night 2 cutscene.
Greetings, employee, and welcome to part 3 of the Warren Tech Mascot Training Module. In this chapter, we'll be demonstrating how to safely wear and operate our patented Flex mascot suit. To begin the process, locate the 4 winding ports present on each of the character's limbs. Use your company-issued War Wrench to turn counterclockwise and disengage the mascot's enhanced performance mode. You should notice the eyes glow red from the activation of the light relay. This means that the mascot is ready to be worn. Simply be warned, do not by any circumstances wear the mascot suit while it is still in its enhanced performance mode. Its specialized routines involve the full rotation and contortion of the extremities. Should you be caught in the suit during the performance of one of these routines, do not panic. If you can, tuck your legs and arms into the main torso and lower your head as far as possible.
Repeat the phrase. Aboard showtime routine. Jonah protocol in effect. Aboard showtime routine. Jonah protocol in effect.
So it seems we've found After Hours at Cody's spring lock equivalent. And in all honesty, I think it's way more brutal than the spring lock suit could ever be. Imagine being locked inside of that clown suit, only for the arms and legs to start twisting, breaking your bones, ripping your tendons, and contorting your bodies in ways it was never supposed to bend. This is easily one of the most terrifying ideas I've ever seen in a FNAF game before, and I'm all for it. Night 3 introduces one new threat, Jack the Jackal. He acts as this game's Chica, being a borderline exact copy of Bad Bitch Bella, except she's a 10 and he's like a 4 at best on a good day. As I'm sure you could have expected, Jack does the exact same thing as Bella, except he attacks camera 6 and your left door instead of your right. The same system and rules apply to him. He has 2 phases on camera 6. Once he's in his second phase, use the alarm on him and close the door until he leaves. Simple sugar. We've dealt with this before, however, it does add a decent deal of pressure in combination with what we already have. The cooldown for the alarm is relatively slow, and now having 3 consistent problems we need to use it on, it could easily start to get out of hand fast. Not to mention having another door character which could prevent us from turning around to check on Morris. This game can get stressful, but I honestly think that's one of the most enjoyable parts about it.
Clocking out? Okay. Have a good night then. Hey, Lonnie, mind if I talk to you about something?
Oh, of course. I was just about to finish up here. What's on your mind?
So, I've been going over the company's financial statements to help allocate the budget for next year. I noticed that some of our bank capital's been withdrawn and donated to a couple of undisclosed recipients. They've been blocked out. You wouldn't happen to know anything about this, would you? Okay. If you don't know anything about it, I'll just go ask Cynthia.
You won't get anything of value out of her. I made those withdrawals.
Alright, that's fine, but let me know next time. Given how much was spent, I don't have enough money left to fund my R&D for the new mascots next year. We need to focus on improving the restaurant before doing anything like this, okay? Anyways, who were the recipients anyway? You're joking, Lonnie. Tell me you're joking.
Quite the opposite, I'm afraid.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And after all that shit about dedicating yourself to the betterment of the company, to promise a business that would never do anything to harm its audience again, you pulled this on me?
Look, calm down. I can explain.
No, you can't explain shit. You may put up a face to get them to tolerate you, but I'll be damned if you ever gave a shit about the kids. I'm the one working my ass off out there to cover for your mistakes.
I said calm down! Don't even start with me. Your pitiful self-righteousness is pathetic. Do you not remember the hole I dug you out of? You owe every part of the success to me. I made this company, and I made you. Don't try to push superiority onto me when you're the one who crawled to me, begging for my help all those years ago. What I do with my company's funds is none of your business. Do what is asked of you before I decide you're no longer needed.
Fine, you made your point.
Glad we came to an agreement. Be seeing you.
Whatever.
So, the brother Lonnie, who we heard in the Night 1 cutscene, has been spending company money on something shady. The exact contents have been redacted, but judging from Daryl's reaction, it's not good news. We also have a pretty big argument about money here. And if we're still rolling with my theory that Lonnie had something to do with Daryl's death, money is one of the most common reasons for murder. Again, not necessarily pointing any fingers. Okay, that's a lie. Yes, I am. There's no way in fuck Lonnie isn't the reason Daryl died. But I guess only time will tell. Night 4 introduces the main attraction himself, Cody. Really shitty name, by the way. The only Cody I like is this gay guy who wears a lot of blue and has some yellow ass teeth. Anyways, onto what Cody from the game does. Cody's main goal in this game is to absolutely rail your power supply. There are 2 cameras which have breaker boxes in them. They must be female because Cody really wants to break their boxes with his big fat patty whacker double-decker robo dig. When he's in either of these cameras, he'll have 2 phases. One where he's just kind of chilling there, and the other where he's having intercourse with said breaker box. When you see him doing his thing with his big fat patty whacker double-decker robo dick, use the alarm on his camera to scare him away. If you don't, obviously your power is going to disintegrate like the cells on my testicles when I accidentally place them on the stove. So, here we have yet another character that requires us to use the alarm system. Can you start to see how this game could become stressful? Especially considering that our alarm has a pretty long cooldown time in reference to the amount of characters that require its use. Yeah, it can become a bit much at times, but in all honesty, I never felt like this game was unfair. I never felt like there was even an inkling of RNG. This game is so fun. You guys really need to check it out, or check out my full playthrough over on my second channel, Dxtr Black.
I'm done.
Just what is the meaning of this?
I can't keep covering your ass. I've just about had it. I've been trying to keep the magic alive for years at this point, but everything you've done has just thrown a wrench in every plan I've had. Every single time I was at the cusp of making something good for our audience, you've pulled the rug out from under my feet. Whatever, I know your heart was never really in it. Hell, we both know that neither of us would be here if it weren't for my mascots.
Do I need to remind you of the last time we've had this conversation?
No, because I've been thinking about what you said. Sure, you helped me out of a dark place, but I'm sure as goddamn hell you only ever did it to leech off my talent, knowing full well you couldn't produce a fraction of what we've accomplished here on your own.
Just get to the point. You're wasting my time.
I've had Cynthia pull our financial statements from the last 2 years. Don't even think about going after her when this is done, because she's made up her mind to leave long ago. I have the contacts of every news outlet in the state, ready to publish the uncensored documents at a moment's notice.
What? Are you dense? Don't you realize that this is gonna spell the end of you too?
I do. Besides, however this turns out sure as hell beats trying to steer a ship that's been sinking for years now. So I'm gonna give you 2 options. Walk away now and forsake your every stake in this company, or take the fall with me and lose everything anyway.
You belligerent, unthinking fool! You really haven't changed at all, have you? Still the over-emotional disaster of a child you've been since we were kids. God, it's no wonder Mom and Dad gave up on you so damn easily. You know what? Do your worst. You won't get anything out of me.
Then I guess you made your choice.
God damn it, Doria, get back here! This isn't something you just decide!
I've told you, my name is Daryl. Goodbye, Bonnie.
No, this can't be happening. Why are you making me do this?
Tisk, tisk, tisk. Well. Looky what we have here. Exactly as I suspected. Lonnie killed his brother. Sure, Daryl was gonna bring the entire company to its knees, but to be fair, it was entirely Lonnie's fault. I also want to use this cutscene to bring up a problem I have with some FNAF fan games. Voice acting can really make or break an impactful scene in a game. You really need to be able to get an actor or actress who can really bring that energy that the role needs to tell its story. Lonnie's voice acting is bad, and it really shows in this Night 4 cutscene. From the mumbling, making it hard to understand what he's saying if it wasn't for the subtitles, to the actor not really yelling during a scene where he needs to be yelling, it makes this scene, which is supposed to be impactful and shocking, just feel very awkward and uncomfortable. Not every game needs voice acting either. If you're a dev working on a FNAF game, or any game for that matter, and you just can't quite find an actor or actress that can fit your role with the vision you had in your head, I honestly think it's much better to just leave the voicing up to the player, rather than using an actor or actress that is going to make your scenes feel like they came out of Garden of Banban, a game series with notoriously horrendous voice acting. Anyways, moving on to Night 5. It introduces nothing new and just serves as a more difficult version of Night 4, so there's obviously not a whole lot to talk about here. However, what we can talk about is the post-Night 5 cutscene.
Hello? Oh, hello? Lonnie, what is this? Get me the hell out of here.
No. They can't know. God, why are you making me do this?
Wait, what? Lonnie, what the hell are you thinking of doing?
Please, don't make this harder than it has to be.
Lonnie, please, no. Listen, don't do this. I'm your brother!
You made me do this! They can't know. No one can know.
Please, Lonnie, I don't want to die! I don't want to die! I don't want to die!
Now, no one will know. I'm sorry, Daryl.
So, Daryl was killed via the Flex clown suit, this game's Springlocks. It's not often you see someone other than the villain in a FNAF game fall to one of these traps. I was definitely shocked when I first saw this, and you can see my reaction to it over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Truly one of the most brutal death scenes I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game, except this time around, it didn't happen to someone we wanted it to happen to. Night 6 introduces this game's final 2 threats, and one of them is obviously the clown, Klaus, acting as this game's boss fight night. Klaus acts as every character we've seen so far, and that includes the anomaly. Klaus can attack both of your doors, can try to break your breaker boxes with his big fat patty whacker double-decker robo dick, and is the anomaly you have to find. Namely, if his eyes are glowing, that's how you know to play the alarm. Do this 10 times and the night is over. But what about Morris? It's stated in the phone call that Klaus destroyed all of the animatronics. What about a Morris mechanic? Well, Morris is replaced by this night's second new threat, Shadow Cody, who is a much faster version of Morris. If you thought you had to check on Morris a lot, you have to check on Shadow Cody a fuck ton more. This night is intense. Klaus is fast. He will be moving around your cameras, attacking you very quickly. And in addition to the incredibly aggressive Shadow Cody, it really serves to test the limits of your skills and your timings, easily being one of my favorite nights in this entire game, and being one of, if not my favorite boss fight night in any FNAF game I've ever played.
You. I need Flumpties. We're going to do wonderful things.
Before Beth can leave the building, she's caught by Klaus, and is never seen by another human being ever again. A local who goes by the name Bethany Hasters has been reported missing as of Sunday 5 a.m. Last seen at Cody & Co.'s Game & Grub, authorities have been searching the vicinity and its surrounding forest areas to deduct what could have occurred. There is no current suspicion of foul play, but a manhunt will be conducted within the week. Authorities state to have found her place of work in disarray, sparking suspicions of the suspect being inebriated or the like. In addition to this, the robot entertainers of the restaurant were found completely disassembled and damaged beyond repair. The company has yet to release a statement, but the resigning CEO has spoken with authorities and announces that the robots will be sent for repair at one of the company's sister facilities. This story is depraved, and trust me, there's a lot that goes into it. Long before the game takes place, Cody & Co.'s Game & Grub was meant to be a second chance, a reopening of a restaurant that had already failed once before, revived under the guidance of Warren Technology. On the surface, it was nothing special. A modest, arcade-style diner built around animatronic mascots, struggling to stay relevant in a world that had already moved on. But beneath that fragile revival was something unstable, something unfinished, quietly embedded into the building's systems. That presence became known as the anomaly. Employees noticed it first, small things at the beginning, strange glitches in the animatronics' behaviors, systems responding without being touched, errors appearing where none should exist. Management acknowledged it, but only as a technical problem, something to be observed, something to be measured, not something to be feared. By the time Bethany Hasters was hired as the night guard, the anomaly was already spreading. Bethany's job was simple on paper: work the overnight shift, monitor the building, and collect data on the anomaly's activity. Her first night begins on November 9th, 1997, and at first, the restaurant almost feels dormant, quiet, empty. But that stillness doesn't last long, because each night, the anomaly grows more aggressive, and it chooses its host one by one. The first animatronic to fall under its influence is Bella the Beaver. Once a friendly mascot, Bella becomes erratic, hostile, and unpredictable, her movements no longer matching her original programming. The following night, Morris the Mouse is corrupted as well, then Jack the Jackal. Each evening, another animatronic loses control, as if something is slowly rewriting them from the inside. All the while, the anomaly watches Bethany. By Thursday night, even Cody, the face of the restaurant itself, is no longer safe. His corruption marks a turning point. The anomaly has nearly overtaken the entire system. Whatever restraint once existed is gone, and by Friday, the restaurant's original code is on the brink of a total collapse. Behind all of this is Warren Technology, and more specifically, the company's founders, Daryl and Lonnie Warren. Years earlier, Daryl had been responsible for developing advanced animatronic technology, including a dangerous experimental suit known as the Flex suit. At some point, Daryl was betrayed and trapped inside that suit. Whether intentional or negligent, the result was the same. Daryl never escaped, and what remained of him became something else entirely. The anomaly. On Friday night, Lonnie Warren lies about a meeting, betrays another employee, and secretly releases what remains of Daryl from backstage confinement. By Saturday, the animatronics have been dismantled, but the threat hasn't ended. The anomaly has a body now, a form known as Klaus, and it is no longer bound to systems or code. It hunts Bethany directly. Saturday night becomes less about surviving malfunctioning machines and more about avoiding a conscious entity moving freely through the building. And if that wasn't enough, another presence emerges, Shadow Cody, a dark manifestation tied to the restaurant's collapse, appearing as an additional threat. In the end, Bethany doesn't escape. She's caught by Klaus and taken away, her fate left deliberately unclear. In the final cutscene, Daryl, still trapped within Klaus, offers her a gift, hinting that her story isn't over, and that whatever comes next will involve choice, consequence, and continuation. And that's where After Hours at Cody's leaves us. A restaurant reopened too late, a company that tried to bury its mistakes, and a presence that was never just a glitch, but the remains of someone who was never allowed to leave. But that's not where After Hours at Cody's comes to a close. Not quite yet. We still have something very interesting to talk about. If you go to the custom night menu after completing the final night, you will see a small chest icon in the bottom corner. Clicking on it will bring you to a FNAF 4 styled lock box with 2 padlocks. And rest assured, we can get the keys. The first key is locked behind 520 mode. If there's anything you guys know about me, it's that I'm absolutely terrible at Five Nights at Freddy's games. But you want to hear something crazy? I was actually able to beat this max mode, and I even did it on my first try. I would usually never even give a max mode a try, and at the time of playing it, I didn't know that beating it would give me a key. Does that let me unlock one of the boxes? Oh my god, it did! So the fact that I played it and beat it goes to show just how much I enjoyed this game, and I really think you guys will too. But what about the second key? Well, you get it by completing this game's second max mode, 220 mode with Klaus and Shadow Cody, which yes, I also beat, and yes, I also beat on my first try. I don't think this game is necessarily very difficult by any means, but I am still very proud of myself for actually doing it. And watching me play it over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, makes me look like I'm a lot better at these types of games than I really am. After completing both max modes, we can take the keys and unlock the box to find a very menacing looking character whose eyes turn on, a teaser for what will undoubtedly be a second game, and I believe that this character we see here is Bethany. But only time will tell. One last thing I want to talk about is something you can find in the extras menu. If you scroll through the characters until you find Klaus and hover over his face, you will see what I believe to be the rotting, decompiling corpse of Daryl. Truly one of the most disturbing images I've ever seen in a FNAF game. And with that, that's all After Hours at Cody's has to offer. Overall, I think this game is easily one of the most unique, interesting, and fun FNAF games I've ever played, right up there with how much fun I had playing Juniors. After Hours at Cody's really is a super fun experience with a gruesome, easy to follow story, and I highly recommend you give it a try. Popular pre-existing IPs in FNAF games. I'm sure quite a few examples already come to your mind when I say that. Five Nights at Wario's, Five Nights at Sonic's, Five Nights at the Krusty Krab, among many others are very popular examples of this. However, in my journey of playing FNAF games to find games worthy enough to talk about, there's one very popular IP I see show up very frequently. An IP that has so many games made by multiple different talented individuals and the person who made the game we'll be talking about today needs no introduction. Today, we're going to be talking about a FNAF game about Teletubbies. You might think that's weird since I just talked about the Tubbyland Archives Act 1 a few weeks ago, but this is a perfect example of just how many FNAF fan games have been built around this IP. Today, we'll be covering the Remnants of Tubbyland, a FNAF fan game made by Avocado Dreams, the same person responsible for one of the most terrifying FNAF games ever designed, Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. Rest assured, this game is terrifying as well, and not only that, it's also really hard. So let's waste no more time and jump right into the Remnants of Tubbyland. To begin, we have to talk about the setting in which this game takes place. Typically in FNAF games, we see the setting as a restaurant, with animatronics that were on stage and would sing in the party room while the children ate their food. But not this time around. The Remnants of Tubbyland takes place in a daycare that's been seemingly left to rot. We take the job as a night guard, and before we know it, we're thrown into a twisted death trap. Loading into the office for the first time, there's already a lot to talk about. Please don't be as hard as the fucking other. What the fuck am I looking at? Let's start by mentioning how fucking creepy this game looks. Obviously, we've got this little fella sitting in front of us, and of course, he will become more important later on. But seriously, just look at the scenery in this game. I honestly think it's creepier than Graveyard Shift. Everything just looks so grainy, uncanny, and gross. It seems like a really nasty place to have to spend your time, and yet here we are spending our time here. We get our night one phone call, and it's just about as basic as you could imagine. The typical night one phone call stuff. The phone guy introduces where we are, why we're watching over the place, and pretends like there's nothing to be worried about, because the murder robots would never murder us.
So if they enter your room, they could knock stuff over and probably damage themselves more than they already have.
Just say they can blow my shit out. The reason we're given as to why we're here is pretty unclear. However, we're told that our main objective is just to watch the robots since they are capable of moving around. At least they can acknowledge that this is something that is happening. Of course, he says they won't hurt us, but also decides it's a great idea to explain to us how to defend ourselves on the off chance they come into our office. He explains their facial recognition and says that if they move around too much, they may damage themselves. So I guess we've got some suicidal robots around here. Fantastic. Anyways, how many threats are introduced on night one? 2. 2 threats are introduced on night 1. So let's go over them. Let's start with this game's main attraction, Dipsy. So I don't see nobody yet. Bro, let me tell you, Avocado Dreams. She knows how to set an atmosphere. What the fuck is that? Dude, Dipsy Dick will begin on camera 2. If we take a look at the map, we can see the path that the characters will have to take to reach us. It's a little bit confusing, so really take a look at it. As you can see, camera 2 is not actually connected to our office at all. This entire building is just one big spiral to reach our office. So Dipsy Dick will have to start from camera 2, then go to 3, 4, 5, and to finally end up in camera 7 before he can attack us. Make sense? Good. Dipsy makes no noise when moving around, so you'll have to track him yourself on the cameras. Once he reaches camera 7, he actually has 2 phases. One far away from the camera, and another where he's a lot closer to the camera. And even despite the fact that this is a robot, somehow his face is able to distort to an unrealistic length. Don't question it. Ooh, spooky. That's all that matters. Like, an entire half of the building has no cameras in it. That's so ugly. That's so ugly. Once Dipsy makes it to the second phase on camera 7, his next move and opportunity will have him disappear. When he does, that's how you know he's about to attack you. Since Dipsy will never move backwards, it's always easy to keep track of him. Once he does disappear, you'll have to put on the sun mask located on your desk. It works exactly the same as the mask from FNAF 2, and of course, Avocado Dreams did not disappoint with the animations. Take a look. Oh my god, dude, that'd be so sick! Damn, bro. That is so cool. That's so cool, bro.
I can't lie to you, man. This shit cool as fuck. This shit cool as fuck.
Just creepy as fuck, isn't it? God, I love it. It's so cool. Anyways, something else about your mask that you've probably noticed is this asthma meter. This is basically just the scrapped toxic meter from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The longer your mask is on, the higher your asthma meter will increase, and if it increases all the way, the mask will forcefully be taken off, and you'll have to wait for a cooldown before you can put it on again. And that's obviously not a good thing, especially not on later nights. Now, for the second threat this night introduces, Trumpet. Trumpet acts as more of a nuisance character rather than an actual threat in this game. However, don't let that make you think you can ignore him, because you most certainly cannot. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Trump Dick rising up from behind your desk. It does make a noise, but on later nights, you may find it hard to hear it while you're on the cameras, so you should get into the habit of checking often. When Trumpet starts to rise, you will have to quickly find his error message that randomly spawns on one of your cameras. My least favorite FNAF mechanic hidden into a character that technically doesn't enter the camera themselves. I'm onto you, game. Watch your back. When you find the error, simply press the power button and Trumpet will fall back behind your desk. But what happens if you just let Trumpet fully appear and start blasting your eardrums with the loudest sound you've ever heard in your entire life? Well, the sound that emits from it will slowly cause the AI value of every other character to slowly increase until Trumpet is turned off. And even after you turn Trumpet off, you want to hear something crazy? The AI values will never go back down throughout the night. So let me tell you, you do not want to miss a Trumpet attack. You will very quickly regret it. Old Trumpet Dick. Night 2 introduces probably the most revolting, nasty, fuck-ass character I've ever seen in my life on this earth. Luckily, it's not nearly as bad as one of Avocado Dream's other demon spawns, Sheriff Slither Dick, but trust me, this character... Luckily, it's not nearly as bad as one of Avocado Dream's other demon spawns, Sheriff Slither Dick, but trust me, this character will still make you want to cover your willy with honey and jump wiener first into a fire anthill. That character, of course, is Poe. Poe is a very simple character to understand. However, that's probably the scariest part about her. Poe starts on camera 1. She will then move to camera 3. From 3, she will either move to camera 2 or camera 4. You want her to move to camera 4. Trust me, it's better for your mental health overall. She will then move between cameras 6, 4, 5, and 3 for the rest of the night. She will never naturally wander to your office, but don't let that make you think you're safe. You're not safe. You're never safe. This is easily the worst character in the entire game. While poop is on the cameras, if you're looking at the camera she's on, you'll be able to hear the song she emits as she wanders around. You'll have to track her around the cameras to constantly make sure the song is playing. If the song ever stops, you're in trouble. On night 2, a large red button will appear on your desk. If the music stops, all you have to do is push this button and her music will reset. But you have to be really fast. If her music is off, that's when she'll make her way to your office. If you at any point see her in camera 7, you need to hit the button immediately. Faster than you've ever hit anything else before in your entire life. Faster than a 1950s husband hits his wife after coming home and not having a martini in his hand the moment he walks through the door. If you don't, obviously... if you don't... if you don't, obviously she's... Damn it. If you don't, obviously she's gonna bounce into your office and start bouncing on it crazy style. Riding it like a bike with no seat type shit. Oh, but he's fast. It is me or did Poe get really fast? Oh shit. Oh my god, my ass just fell off. Fuck. And before you say anything, look at this ugly fuck. You don't want that. The problem that Poe brings into this game is obviously requiring your constant attention. And Dipsy has already been shown to require a lot of your attention as well. And trust me, the synergy that Poe has with every other character that will be introduced into this game is prominent and brutal the entire way through. So let's continue talking about them, shall we? Night 3 brings on this fuckhead in your office, Tinky Winky. So I really like that. I don't like this fucker staring at me right now. I can't lie. That I'm not a huge fan of, the way he's looking at me. He's like licking his lips and shit, and it's like, let's not. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Tinky Dick works in the exact same way as Peggy from Showman's The Awakening, which I've covered on this channel before, and you should go watch that video after you finish this one. Tinky Dick is very much a weeping angel character. If you're looking at him, he won't move. But if you have your camera up, he will slowly begin to creep towards you throughout 3 different phases. Each phase is pretty obvious, so don't worry about not noticing it. After the final phase, he will attempt to jump you like you're in the streets of Compton. All you have to do is put your mask on and he'll go back to where he was. However, unlike Dipsy, Tinky requires you to be a lot faster with your mask, and you can't put on your mask before an attack to bait the attack out. Tinky has to attack before putting the mask on will push him backwards. Thankfully, if you're on your cameras, he will force them down when he attacks. So it isn't just a guessing game, but you have to be really, really fast, especially on later nights. You'll have close to only 1 second to put it on once he attacks, lest your butt cheeks get spread and he lathers peanut butter and jelly on that shit like a midnight snack. Oh, okay. It's blatantly obvious. Huh, bitch? Was I just not fast enough? Do you have to be like really, really quick with it? Obviously, Tinky brings up an enormous problem. With 2 characters requiring you to constantly watch them on the cameras, adding a character that penalizes you for using the cameras is obviously going to cause quite a bit of problems. This is actually the problem that led to me having to change the way I play the game and switch up my strategy to solely focusing on Poe and occasionally checking on camera 7 to see if Dipsy has arrived yet. It's also this character that made me decide to start forcing attacks from him. For example, let's say Dipsy just attacked me. I know it's going to be a while before Dipsy can come to attack me again. So in order to not have the asthma meter blow up my guts, I would sit and stare at the cameras until Tinky attacked me, resetting his timer before the next Dipsy attack. It's a very AIDS strategy that makes me die a little bit on the inside, but it does get the job done well enough. Well, now it's time to move on to night 4 and introduce a character so sepsis-ridden you'd think you've injected yourself with every disease on Earth. Lala. Lala starts in camera 1 like poop. She has a set path around the map to get to your office, very similar to Dipsy. On this night, you'll notice that each camera Lala will travel through will now be equipped with a camera button, allowing you to take a picture of each camera and obviously emitting a flash of light at the same time. I'm sure you can tell exactly where this is going. Lala will move throughout the cameras during this night. You will have to flash her on whatever camera she's on to push her back. Then go to the camera you pushed her to and flash her again. Keep doing this until you push her back into camera 1. When she goes back into camera 1, she will shut down and won't attack again for a while. So doing this is very important. And if you're lucky, you can catch her really quickly and only have to push her back once. The problem with her? She is very, very fast. She will move through her cameras faster than the fat bitch in line at the Golden Corral who's hopping up and down because the buffet just got refilled. Sit down, Shamu. There are so many things that I don't understand. I don't know what's going on right now. Oh. You're telling me she got all the way through the cameras that fast? You're telling me she got through every camera that fast? No. No. This is bullshit. Let me tell you what this is. This is bullshit, bro. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? How the fuck am I supposed to keep track of those 3 fuckers at the same time while also not looking at the cameras for this fucker? I'll tell you how, you don't. That's bullshit. What the fuck? We now have an interesting group of mechanics to talk about. Thankfully, even though this game does rely a lot on RNG, there was a very clear attempt put in place by Avocado Dreams to mitigate how much RNG is actually involved. The main example I can point to is Tinky Winky. Tinky Winky will never attack you if Lala has left camera 1. This prevents an insta-loss that would otherwise be present. Obviously, if Tinky Dick is about to attack and you get an attack from Lala, if you were to deal with Lala, then Tinky would attack you, and while being attacked, Lala would easily make it to your office and kill you. So thank God Tinky isn't able to attack you while Lala is. However, his aggression meter will still increase, meaning that immediately after you deal with Lala, it's very likely you will get an insta attack from Tinky. So you'll need to be fast, but at least there isn't any luck involved. Night 5 introduces nothing new, and is just a much harder version of Night 4. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys. I was not able to beat Night 5. I'm sure that if I threw in hours upon hours of attempts, I would have beaten it eventually, but I just don't have the type of patience like other people do. I applaud you if you beat it, but I did not. But now we get to talk about what everyone who's familiar with this game has been waiting for: Custom Night, and the secret night that comes along with it. If you go into Custom Night, you may notice that there is an extra character slot just labeled NA. You'll also notice that you're unable to set its AI value. If you input the code 34193 into the other characters and press start, you will be entered into the secret boss night this game has to offer: Dream Night. Dream Night introduces 2 new threats, while disabling all other threats we've seen so far. These 2 new characters are Nunu and Evocation. Let's start with Evocation, since he was easily the character that confused me the most. Evocation will begin on camera 2, slowly emerging from a screen. After he leaves that camera, he will randomly teleport to any other camera except camera 1. You'll have to quickly find him and keep your eyes on him. From there, he can attack you in one of 2 ways. The first way will have him get super close to the camera and laugh like a child, which just fills me with rage because I hate children. When he does, all you have to do is flash whichever camera he went to. His other attack has him disappear from the camera entirely. If he does, he will immediately teleport inside of your office and float above you like he's possessed by the devil. If this is the attack he chooses, all you have to do is put your mask on and he will leave instantly. You do have to be pretty fast with both attacks, so make sure you have your reflex game on point. Another thing to point out about the way Evocation attacks is that he will never attack the same way twice. So, his first attack will be random, but from there it will be incredibly easy to predict how he will attack, since he'll just be alternating between the 2, which honestly serves to make this boss fight easier. Anyways, on to the only other threat present in Dream Night: Nunu, the vacuum, or if you have bad teeth and your country's food tastes like shit, a Hoover. Nunu is very simple, really just being a distraction character. He will randomly wander around cameras 4, 5, and 6. Occasionally, you may hear a loud metal bang. That means Nunu is just being a pesky little guy. Find which camera he's on, which should be pretty easy since his eyes will be flashing and he'll be emitting a nasty noise. Simply flash the camera he's on and bada bing bada boom, he's dealt with. Upon beating Dream Night, you will unlock that special character in the Custom Night screen. Spoiler alert, it's fucking Evocation. You might be wondering where Nunu is. Well, Nunu is actually a part of Evocation. So if you activate Evocation, Nunu will be activated alongside him as well, which I honestly think is really cool. As far as the story of this game goes, Avocado Dreams kept it pretty simple. After completing Night 5, we get this news article along with our paycheck. Infamous Tubbyland Daycare finally sees its end after a 15-year-long battle to sell the property. Following a tragic accident back in 2000, the childcare facility promptly closed its doors and left the building dormant, alone, and forgotten. Years having flown by, locals urged city officials to accelerate the auction process due to rumors that have been circulating the desolate daycare. The property is planned to be utilized for a brand new facility using the same philosophies and presentation ideas, but aiming for a new and safer direction. So it's very clear that something terrible happened in 2000. So what could that possibly be referring to? According to the wiki, back in 2000, Nunu fucking exploded inside of the daycare, starting a massive fire. Our player, Parker Anderson, was in the building at the time with his son, Lucas. Lucas most likely being the identity of Evocation, which would also make sense as to why Nunu is activated alongside of him and why a child will laugh when he gets close to the camera. When the fire erupted, Parker left the building and saved himself, leaving his son behind to be burned alive. Years later, as the building is going to be demolished after being sold, Parker takes up the night shift job. He's unable to move on. Filled with guilt, he's not capable of forgetting what he did. Of course, Lucas's soul lingers inside the daycare, still angry, unforgiving of what his father did to him. So in Dream Night, he lashes out to attack. There's honestly not a whole lot of info on this game's lore. That is quite literally all I was able to gather from it. If there's anything I'm missing or something new comes up after this video goes live, please let me know in the comments below, as I definitely feel like there's a bit more to this. But as far as I'm aware, that's all the Remnants of Tubbyland has to offer. Overall, I think this game is incredibly scary. It's very good at keeping you on your toes the entire time, and while I may feel like the later nights are not balanced very well, and that there is still a large deal of RNG to have to deal with, I can't go without appreciating Avocado Dream's attempts at mitigating it as much as possible. Recently, I've been covering a lot of very well-known fan games on this channel. Five Nights at Candy's, Pop Goes, and Animatronic Memories are probably names you're all familiar with. Recently, I've been looking for a FNAF game to cover that I personally had never heard of, and today I've definitely found one. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's super weird, but however, it does have its charm and an amazing story. So, let's waste no time and hop right into Tales of the Bunnyman. Tales of the Bunnyman opens with a cutscene that reminds me a lot of the old official Five Nights at Freddy's trailers, specifically Five Nights at Freddy's 2. We get several shots of the pizzeria interlaced with pieces of dialogue explaining the exposition of the story. We play as a man named Vincent Baldwin, who we later learn used to be a night guard and is one of the missing children's fathers, the father of Cassidy. We're entering the building to do some investigating and find out where our missing child went. And with our motive in mind, we're safe to head into Night 1 and start talking about what this game really has to offer. Night 1 introduces two characters, but before I start talking about them, I want to talk about the office itself. In our office, the first thing I want to get out of the way is this picture. I don't know who this is. I checked the wiki and couldn't figure out who this is. That's it. I just don't know who this is. Anyways, on to something actually important. The coolest thing I noticed about this office is that there are actually two rooms that we can move between. The typical office room and the boiler room. I'll talk more about the boiler room later when it becomes important. The door to the boiler room can be held shut, as animatronics will actually have to travel through it in order to get to your office. The only other things in our office is our camera system and a giant gift box. We can hide inside of this gift box to be able to protect ourselves from the first major threat of this night, Foxy. Foxy behaves pretty much exactly the same as in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. He starts on Pirate's Cove and makes his way through some phases before attacking. However, something unique about Foxy is he actually has two completely different attacks he can perform, each of which requires you to do something completely different to counteract him. The first attack he has is pretty simple. After he leaves Pirate's Cove, he will charge towards your office. When he does, you'll have to quickly jump inside the present until you hear him run away, after which you can jump back out and continue. His other attack is unfortunately a mechanic I've grown to dislike more and more as I play FNAF games. After leaving Pirate's Cove, Foxy has a chance to appear randomly on one of your cameras. When he does, all you have to do is find him and stare at him until he goes back to Pirate's Cove. This is mainly a me thing, but I've personally grown tired of the find them on the cameras mechanic. Yes, I do play Five Nights at Freddy's for a living, so yes, I'm going to see repeated mechanics a lot. Most sane people don't play as much Five Nights at Freddy's as I do, so most people won't find this mechanic to be that big of a deal, but hey, at least it's not a stupid fucking music box mechanic. We'll talk about that later. The only other threat introduced on this night is Bonnie. Bonnie is incredibly simple in how he works, as is typical in most FNAF games that feature him. Bonnie will make his way through the building and to your office. Afterwards, you'll be able to hear him at your door. You'll need to quickly go up to the door and hold it shut until you hear him leave like Five Nights at Freddy's 4. When you do, you'll know it's safe to reopen the door and continue the night. Very basic. That's just how we like Bonnie, isn't it, guys? Right? You like it when Bonnie's basic, right? You wouldn't want Bonnie to just hop bottom right into your office and start fingering you, would you? Freak. And with that, we can move on to the post-night 1 minigame. Here's where we get to talking a lot about how cool this game really is. This game does narrative storytelling in a different way than any other FNAF game I've ever seen. Instead of an 8-bit minigame or a slideshow lore dump, Tales of the Bunnyman turns into a visual novel during the post-night sections, having you play in the perspective of a different character each night. I think this is actually super cool. While yes, you may think that it looks straight out of a My Hero Academia DeviantArt fan page, it is very clear that an amazing amount of care and effort went into these post-night sections, and that cannot go unnoticed. Before I really start talking about the lore of this game, I need to make it incredibly clear that there was so much poured into this story. There's so many details that I could point out that would make this video quite literally take hours to complete. And while I'd love to be able to talk about all of it, I don't have the confidence in myself to do so, and to be able to portray it in the way that it rightfully deserves. I'll be going over what happens in the story, but I won't be diving into every single minute detail, and I apologize if you were hoping that I would. Anyways, in this minigame, we play in the perspective of Jeremy Jr. Fitzgerald. After hanging out with his friends at Freddy Fazbear's, he notices that his mom has not yet come to pick him up. After waiting an extended period of time, he decides to just watch the performance on stage. Hearing a strange whistling coming from backstage, he enters to investigate, only to abruptly get abducted and murdered by the Bunny Man, going on to possess Bonnie. I honestly think that these post-night minigames are a breath of fresh air in this genre. I've never seen anything like it before, and I'd love to see more FNAF games try to do something new like this to tell their story. But now it's time for us to move on to Night 2. Night 2 only introduces one new thread, that being Chica. Chica does exactly what you'd expect her to do, and no, I don't mean eating until she pops like a balloon. What I really mean is moving through the cameras and then going to your office. Oh my fucking god, that is gross. Yuck. Fucking yuck, bro. She does go through one additional camera compared to Bonnie, making you see her less often than him, but other than that, she's exactly the same as Bonnie. I'll also use this night to talk about the only thing I dislike about this game. The mouse. Oh my god, this mouse is atrocious. Oh no, this mouse is really bad. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you'll already know that the way the mouse works is always something I'll have a problem with when fan games try to switch it up. In most FNAF games, when you move your mouse to the side of the screen will scroll in that direction until it hits the end of your office. That makes sense, and this is good. Tales of the Bunny Man instead decided to take a route similar to Sister Location. If you are to move your mouse to one side of the screen in Tales of the Bunny Man, your mouse won't follow the moving office. Instead, the game will keep track of its simulated X and Y positions in the office. And while this may sound super cool, in practice, it leads to you having to move your mouse all the way across your desk or increasing your mouse's sensitivity to be able to make up for it. Is this nitpicky? Yes. But I am giving my opinion on a game, so I think it's important to talk about things that I notice, especially when it's the main interaction mechanic in the entire game. Anyways, moving on to the post-Night 2 minigame, where we play in the perspective of Susie Sutherland. The group of friends were supposed to play the newly installed arcade game, Pop Goes vs. the Machinist? 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 Mechanist? Machinist? I don't know. Instead, she decides to split up from the group to go look for Bonnie. Walking around the building, we can talk to a kid named Ollie, who mentions something about Bonnie acting weird recently. Given the timeline of the events this game has, I'm fairly certain that this cutscene is taking place 16 days after Jeremy's disappearance. So I think it's safe to say that Jeremy at this point in time is already inside of the Bonnie costume. During this minigame is when Susie can also find a VHS tape relating to Edwin Murray. If you couldn't already tell, this game's story is heavily entwined with the official FNAF games. Later, Susie heads over to Pirate's Cove to get a peek at Foxy, getting startled by William inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. It's at this point I need to mention two things. One, why is this specific camera in the post-nights a 3D render instead of the usual 2D drawing? And two, why is William the only character in the entire game to have voice acting? Mr. Afton, don't scare me like that.
Now, what's a missy like you doing snooping around a pirate's property?
Why is he voice acted? I'm much more curious about my second question. I was a little caught off guard when I first heard him speak, since, again, nobody in the game thus far ever has. But regardless, that's not very important. After a brief, uncomfortable conversation with Afton, we meet up with our friends again at the new arcade machine, and as we play the game, we're seen being stalked by the Bunny Man. If you couldn't already guess, Susie Sutherland goes on to possess Chica. Now it's time to talk about Night 3, which introduces one new threat, Freddy and the Marionette. Now, pause. Let's just stop for a moment and talk about Freddy first, okay? Freddy, like Foxy, has two different attacks. We'll talk about the more simple one first. Freddy will make his way through the cameras and enter your boiler room. The reason he does so is to attempt to cut the power, because doing so will allow for the Marionette to come spread your buns and lick up your crack. To prevent this from happening, we will have to enter the boiler room and hold our flashlight on his face, causing him to bug out and leave the boiler room. However, before he does, we actually get to see him creepily tilt his body. Such a small detail, but I actually really like it. Now we can talk about the other mechanic Freddy has that I originally thought was going to make me want to skin an elephant. As previously mentioned, it's clear that Freddy wants to assist in helping the Marionette grope us. So, Freddy's other attack is him going to the music box to fuck up the Marionette's sleep schedule. Fun fact, I used to work a graveyard shift at a news station, and let me tell you, you don't want to fuck with nobody's sleep schedule, bro. So, in order to save the Marionette's sanity, we must remotely shut down the music box before Freddy can finish. Moving on to the Night 3 post-night minigame, we play in the perspective of Fritz Smith II. Let me tell you, this guy is a big fan of Foxy. So much so that he insists on constantly talking like a pirate. Something that made me want to eat my own lungs throughout my playthrough because I was writhing in cringe. A.S. the worst one. It be fixin' to be jolly. What the fuck does that mean? Fritz leaves the group to go look for Foxy. Going to Pirate's Cove, he finds a decommissioned Foxy behind the curtains. Additionally, he finds a diary written by Henry. I guess for some reason, this is where Henry goes to vent. Right next to the fucked up looking robot. A little weird, Henry, but you do you, boo. Inside of the diary, we read that Henry is struggling to cope with the loss of his daughter and his theory about Jeremy and Susie's disappearances having something to do with each other. Little did he know how right he truly was. Whilst continuing to read the diary, the Bunny Man appears behind him and drags him into the back room, all while taunting him, saying that he thought he was more interested in Foxy than Henry's diary. Fritz would go on to possess Foxy. Moving on to Night 4, we get to talk about a very odd threat, Balloon Boy. Yes, for some reason, Balloon Boy is in this game. Don't question it. I guess the developer of this game just hates fun. Balloon Boy isn't a very difficult threat to deal with, thankfully, instead serving more of an annoyance, which is very fitting for his character. Balloon Boy can only appear in 2 rooms in the entire game, the boiler room and your backstage camera. You'll have to listen out for a vent sound cue. When you hear it, you'll have to travel to the back room and find where Balloon Boy is, because, unlike Freddy, he has multiple different locations that he can stand in. Once you find Balloon Boy, just like Freddy, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on him until he goes away. I'm really not entirely sure why Balloon Boy exists in this game. I have yet to find any story reason for it either. Maybe it's just a popular character to put into the game, or maybe I'm just reading way too much into this. I'm not really sure, but hey, let's move on to the post-Night 4 minigame. In this minigame, we play as Gabriel Collins. Gabriel sneaks into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because he has a hunch that his missing friends are still inside. Once he enters, he searches the location, eventually discovering the Marionette. They quickly become friends and begin exploring the establishment together. Eventually, they stumble across Michael and William Afton. William is trying to convince Michael to work as a performer, playing the character of Bonnie. But before we can hear anything else, William spots us. He chases us through the building, and the Marionette hides us in its gift box. However, unfortunately for Gabriel, William finds him anyway and is knocked out. He wakes up inside of the Freddy Fazbear costume, watching William Afton jump around the dining room, mocking him through his last breaths. Gabriel would then go on to possess Freddy. This is easily one of the most fucked up cutscenes throughout the entire game. I'm no edgelord, as some people seem to think I am, but I really enjoy when games show us the depraved things that the villains do. I and many others don't want to just hear about things happening, we want to see them as well. Of course, I don't think we all want to literally see the children getting murdered, but I think showing off the situations in the way that Tales of the Bunnyman does is incredibly interesting. Next, we get to move on to Night 5, the final main night in Tales of the Bunnyman. This night adds Fredbear, an interesting but fitting final character choice. Fredbear acts as an everything character, being able to take on the role of every animatronic besides Balloon Boy and Foxy. However, unlike most everything nights that take place in other FNAF games, Fredbear is active alongside each other animatronic, adding one more layer of stress to the nights. Again, he doesn't have any unique mechanics by himself, but this time I'm honestly okay with that, only because the other characters are still active. It's at this point I want to bring up something I should have brought up a long time ago: the character designs. From what I've seen, the community seems to be pretty split on their opinions of these character designs. A lot of people love them and think that in combination with the grungy environment, it makes them look very creepy. However, on the other hand, I've seen plenty of people who think that the designs look unprofessional and seemingly come out of a game that came out many years ago. I personally have no problems with the character designs. I think they look creepy and uncomfortable. However, I do think that the texturing on the characters does look a bit odd, but nothing that I feel takes away from the immersion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, since I'm being a little meta right now, go subscribe to my new channel, Dxtr Gray. I cover non-FNAF horror games over there, and we have a lot of fun. Anyways, moving on to the final post-night minigame where we play in the perspective of Cassandra Baldwin, or better known, Cassidy. Now, noticing that she's the only member of her friend group that hasn't gone missing, she vows to figure out what happened to them and find where they all disappeared to. Entering the back room, she finds a Fredbear plushie which, throughout the game, has been shown to be able to teleport on its own, and yet, for some reason, nobody felt like that was weird at all. This is really the only gripe I have with this story, the plushie teleporting around, and multiple people know about this, yet nobody is at all a little concerned about it. On top of that, it is literally never once elaborated on or explained why this happens. I can't even draw a conclusion because there's quite literally no reason, but let's try to put that behind us for a moment and continue. We do know that the plushie is being used by Afton to lure Cassidy into the back room. Now, pause. I know I just said there's literally no reason given as to why it's teleporting, and you may be questioning why I said that even though I just stated that William was using it to lure Cassidy. However, that still doesn't explain how it was fucking teleporting, and still doesn't explain why nobody gave that a second thought. Anyways, Cassidy is successfully lured into the back room. Scared, Cassidy runs out of the pizzeria and later returns for a Halloween party. Baka! I know that's not what that says, I'm sorry. As she explores, she's found by the bunny man who presumably knocks her out after stating, "You forgot me." She awakens to find herself inside of the Fredbear costume. William explains that originally he planned to save the Fredbear costume for Henry, but decided to use it for Cassidy instead. During their conversation, it's revealed that Vincent, the character that we've been playing as in the night sections, according to William, is a terrible night guard, which would technically leave him responsible for not noticing the children's disappearances on the camera, since every action that William had been taking was done under the constant surveillance of those cameras, including what's happening right now in front of us. This would give us a perfect reason as to why he's returning to the restaurant now to find his daughter, because he didn't watch her like he was supposed to. He never saw what happened. Afterwards, we get one last cutscene. Vincent walks up to the Fredbear animatronic and realizes it's his daughter. However, he trips and falls, which leads to him getting killed by his own daughter, and Tales of the Bunnyman abruptly comes to a close. Almost. There's actually one more thing to talk about, that being Night 6, or as this game calls it, the epilogue. In it, after completing the final challenge, which is just a harder version of Night 5, we see the line, "He finally found the suit that will become his tomb, the last lingering piece of his soul." a good song never dies. With that, we get to watch William's springlock failure and onlook as he bleeds out. We're shown that Vincent, our character, was found dead inside of Freddy Fazbear's, and several news outlets labeled him as the reason the kids were murdered. I can't lie to you guys, I'm really eager to talk about this story, since after reading into it, I actually think it's really good, and it's clear that a bunch of effort was put into it. But like I said previously, I'm just not confident in my abilities to do it for myself. I've tossed around the idea of just reading the highly detailed explanation on the wiki that was written by somebody that was far more talented than I am, but I've decided against doing that since I don't want to come off as lazy and uninspired. And as much as I hate saying this, I'd highly recommend you go to the wiki and read up on it. It's actually such an amazingly well-written story, and I think it might just be one of the best takes on the official FNAF story I've ever seen. Overall, I think Tales of the Bunnyman is an enjoyable experience. The post-night minigames are interesting, and the story is fantastic and told in a way that isn't overtly confusing like most FNAF games like to be. However, I do think that the actual gameplay mechanics are pretty lackluster. Not only does each character not really have synergy with one another, this game is also just too easy. Throughout the nights, it never really feels like the characters are becoming more aggressive, which tends to lead to boring nights where you're just waiting for the much more enjoyable minigame sections. Depravity. Something that plagues several corners of the internet. Whether you like to think about it or not, disgusting people lurk everywhere. They're in every community, interacting with countless people, and in the worst cases, interacting with minors. They corrupt even the most wholesome of communities and snake their way into people's trust. But even the slimiest of snakes get the light shined on their dark desires eventually. And while it may hurt people knowing that someone they looked up to or someone who created something they really enjoyed were one of these snakes, it's always important to remember, though, that a bad apple doesn't always spoil the whole orchard. Today, we'll be talking about an incredibly infamous game in the Five Nights at Freddy's community. I'm not the first, nor will I be the last to speak about it, but I and many other sensible people are capable of separating the art from the artist, and are plenty capable of commenting and criticizing a piece of media without attaching its creator to it. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. Towards the end of this video, I will also be talking about the creator of this game to give you a better understanding of what he was like before he seemingly left the internet. If things are about to get uncomfortable or depraved, I will give ample warning before we talk about said subjects. But in general, viewer discretion is advised. Come with me as we dive into the sick and depraved world of Dormitibus. But before we talk about the disgusting story of this game that would make most normal people want to throw up, we first have to talk about the actual gameplay, which I'll tell you is definitely something. I'll let you be the judge of whether or not it's actually good. There's no better place to start than night one, which I will mention, Dormitibus takes a different approach to nights than most FNAF games. Generally speaking, FNAF games have 5 nights, corresponding to 1 work week on the job, with a typical 6th day of overtime and 7th optional night to round out the week. Since in Dormitibus we play as a character who isn't actually working anywhere, Dormitibus is not tied to a typical week, instead having 10 nights rather than the typical 6. So let's dive right into night 1. Let's start by talking about this goofy-ass office. You can travel from one side of the office to the other. One side of the office lets you look at your cameras, and the other side of the office has literally fucking nothing. But I'll go over why the useless side of the office is technically not useless in a moment. Another question you may have is, why the hell do we run under the table to get to the other side of the room when there's plenty of space on both sides of the table to walk around? Now you see, the answer to that question is fuck you. But now let's actually talk about some animatronics. As usual, I will explain each animatronic as they're introduced into the game, and on night 1, we only have one animatronic to deal with, that being Havoc Freddy. Try your best not to focus on these goofy-ass designs. They have their own charm, in a way. Havoc Freddy is one of the most simple characters in all of Dormitibus. Freddy will move throughout the cameras, slowly inching towards your office. He arrives at your left door, and when he does, you can turn to your left to double check that he's there. you'll be able to see him peering in at you. When he's there, you'll need to run to the other side of the room. At that point, he will almost immediately go away. I have no idea why this scares him away. I guess he's brain dead, but I'm not going to complain about an easy mechanic. Fun fact, you can actually make this mechanic even easier by never even checking if Freddy is at your door. Freddy makes a very noticeable sound cue when he arrives at your door, that being the sound of a door creaking directly in your left ear. I wonder if the other animatronics will be any harder. As mentioned, Havoc Freddy is the only enemy in Night 1, so beating it should be a cakewalk. What does Night 2 have in store? Well, Night 2 doesn't have Havoc Freddy present, and this is where I want to bring up something about this game that I actually think is pretty cool. In most FNAF games, as the nights go on, more and more animatronics will be added, and on top of that, they will become more and more aggressive. Dormitibus takes a different approach. Because of how many characters there are, it would not be possible to deal with all of them at once if their AI levels were super high. So instead, the game experiments with animatronic combinations, pairing a few animatronics together rather than throwing all of them at you at the same time, which I think is actually pretty cool. But for animatronics in Night 2, we have Havoc Chica and Am I Real, also known as Cake Bear. Let's start with Havoc Chica, as her mechanic is the easiest to deal with of the two. Havoc Chica is pretty much just a slightly more annoying version of Havoc Freddy, with one deep, cutting, wounding flaw that I'll get to later. Chica will move around the building and make her way to your right door. Once Chica gets to your door, you can turn to check if she's there, but like Freddy, she also makes a very obvious sound cue, that being laughing in your right ear. When Chica is at the door, all you need to do is run to the useless side of the room and stare at Chica. Once she leaves, you will have to very quickly run back to the camera side of the room. If you don't move back fast enough, Havoc Cupcake will have a feast with your yeast. That's disgusting. I'm sorry. Oh my god. Now it's time to talk about Am I Real? Am I Real moves around the cameras at random. Whenever he enters a new camera, he will audibly state which camera he moved to. Once you hear him say a camera, you will have to switch to that camera and check which form he's in. Am I Real has two possible forms, one form being Am I Real, a gross Springtrap looking design, and the other form being Cake Bear, a much more normal Freddy looking design. If you check the camera and see Cake Bear, you're free to continue playing the game as usual, no call for alarm. However, if you check the camera and you see Am I Real, you will have to stay and stare at that camera for what can feel like at times an entire minute, until Am I Real turns back into Cake Bear. Now, this may sound scary, especially when you think about the fact that in order to run to the other side of the room to avoid Havoc Chica and Freddy, you have to turn the cameras off. But the game knew this would be a problem, so when you shut the cameras off to move to the other side of the room, it will still count as you staring at that camera, meaning that Am I Real will still turn back to Cake Bear even if you're on the other side of the room, as long as the last camera you were looking at was Am I Real's. If you don't watch Am I Real, he will appear at your right door, and once he's there, there's nothing you can do to stop him from giving you a rough spanking that a lot of you freaks will really like. If you can manage all of that, then congratulations! You're ready to move on to Night 3. Night 3 uses Havoc Freddy, Am I Real, and two new characters, Soul Cage and Molten Evil. I'll cover Molten Evil first. Molten Evil will only ever appear in your office. When you see him, he will start to cover your screen with blue plasma. Once this plasma is on your screen, you will have to play dead by looking up at the ceiling. Don't ask. I know it doesn't make any sense, but just pretend like it does for me. After looking at the ceiling for long enough, the plasma will go away and you'll be safe to look down again. If you look up before the plasma is on your screen, Molten Evil will wait until you look back down before putting the plasma on your screen, so looking up early really only just stalls him. Soul Cage is somewhat similar in a way. Soul Cage will move around the cameras and slowly piece itself together. Once it's put together fully, it will make its way to your right door. Once he arrives, he too will play a sound cue to let you know he's there. When he does, you'll have to look over at him. Afterwards, he'll enter your office and move up onto your ceiling. In order to get him to leave, all you have to do is stare up at the ceiling at him until he goes away. If you haven't noticed yet, every single character can be dealt with by staring at them. And if you're hoping that the other characters will be different, most of them will cause you to be sorely disappointed. Hate to break it to you. Wait, who am I kidding? I love breaking bad news. Night 4 only introduces one new character, but the returning characters are Havoc Freddy, Havoc Chica, and Am I Real. The new character is Havoc Puppet. Havoc Puppet moves around the cameras and makes its way to your back window, which is located right behind your computer. Once Havoc Puppet appears in your window, it will make a very noticeable sound cue. At that point, all you have to do is turn around to your window and stare at it until it goes away. Are you starting to notice a possible game mechanic flaw with Dormitibus? Literally every character is answered by looking at them, and that's literally it. Hopefully, we get a new character soon that's at least a little different. Holy fucking shit, this new character is bullshit. Okay, let's take a step back and relax for a second. Every character up until this point has been Baby Caca Easy Mode. Night 5 consists of Soul Cage, Havoc Puppet, Am I Real, and the two brand new Wombo combo, Havoc Foxy and Golden Call. Havoc Foxy and Golden Call are pretty much one and the same, as one of them really can't work without the other. Havoc Foxy is on camera 5, something I thought was weird because the phone guy on this night says that he's on camera 4, which is just flat out wrong, but let's move past that. Havoc Foxy has 3 phases on his camera, which the final has Foxy standing out of his curtains. You can slow down Foxy by watching his camera, and this will become very important because you want to avoid his 3rd phase as much as you can. However, this can prove difficult because of one character I'm sure you've already thought about, Am I Real? With Am I Real hogging most of your camera time, Foxy is free to butt-fuck you as much as he wants. Once Foxy reaches phase 3, Golden Call comes into play. After reaching phase 3, Golden Call will send a voicemail to your computer with a Trojan virus attached. In order to remove the Trojan, you'll have to type in a password. How do you get the password? Well, this is when phase 3 Foxy becomes important. While in phase 3, Foxy will be holding a sign with the randomly generated phrase on it. You'll have to read the phrase on the sign and find the longest word. The longest word will be the password you need to get rid of the Trojan. Once you remove the Trojan, you will have to very quickly run to the other side of the office and watch the right side door as Foxy will soon be approaching. Once Foxy peers in, all you have to do is stare at him until he goes away. Afterwards, you'll be free to go back to your cameras and resume business as usual. Congrats! You've successfully survived a Golden Call attack. Are you stressed? Well, you should be because you're going to be seeing a lot more of that. Again, the real problem with Havoc Foxy and Golden Call isn't really their mechanics. That's fine. The problem really comes down to Am I Real? Again, Am I Real constantly requires your attention as he moves around the cameras often. Just by himself, he'll take away from your time stalling Foxy, and once you get a Trojan, you'll have to stop looking at Am I Real to find the password. But not watching Am I Real will get you killed really easily. Generally speaking, from my experience, you want to drop everything for Golden Call, get the password in as fast as you can, quickly switch back to Am I Real's camera before running to the other side of the room to watch Foxy. I feel like this will give you the most success. Night 6 includes Havoc Foxy, Havoc Chica, Molten Evil, and Am I Real. While that alone may sound like a very unfun time, just wait until I introduce the next most frustrating character on the planet, the BOA, or as I like to call it, Boa, aka Boa Bitch Boy. Boa starts in a box on the cameras and slowly emerges from it, afterwards making its way to your right door. Once there, it will give you a sound cue. When you hear it, you will need to quickly move to the other side of the room. Something pretty interesting about Boa is that he actually speaks to you. If you run into the other side of the room, Boa says this. Once you get to the other side of the office, just like most characters, all you have to do is look at it. You might be wondering why this character is so frustrating if he acts exactly the same as Havoc Chica. Well, the answer to that question is simple. Boa Bitch Boy sits at your door for approximately 17 years, and that number came from countless hours of crunching the numbers, analyzing algorithms. I promise it's very accurate. That's seriously why Boa is such a difficult character to deal with. Mixed with all the other characters that require so much of your attention, having a character that requires double or maybe even triple the amount of time can feel like a purgatory. But if you can handle that, you'll be on to Night 7. Night 7 contains Soul Cage, Molten Evil, and the deadly Wombo combo of Havoc Foxy, Golden Call, and Am I Real. No new characters on this night, but I'm sure it's just so that players have some time to find some strategies that can fend off the Butthole Trilogy gang. Night 8 is where this game cranks the dial up to 1,000. While it introduces no new characters, the combo of characters present is enough to make any grown man cry. I know I did. Night 8 consists of Havoc Freddy, Havoc Chica, Havoc Foxy, Golden Call, Am I Real, and the icing on the cake, the Boa. This lineup of characters is actually so disgusting, I find it difficult to use vocabulary fitting enough to describe my disgust. I could dish out 100 vulgarities, and it still wouldn't be enough to portray the feeling of dread you get while trying to beat this knight. The Wombo combo mixed with the boa is already bad enough, but throw Freddy and Chica into the mix and you're itching for somebody to commit quintuple homicide on everybody in their domicile. This is probably the most infamous night in this entire game. There's a one-on-one boss fight on a later night, but that doesn't even compare to this bullshit. You want to know the main issue? The main issue is that this night is entirely dependent on luck. That's the worst part. Most people who play FNAF will tell you that luck is the most unenjoyable part of any FNAF game because it doesn't matter how much you practice. Your chances of winning is entirely dependent on whether or not the game decides to fuck you in the asshole. And for some unfortunate people who played this game soon after it released, had to deal with an absolutely foul bug. Remember when I said that Chica had a terrible flaw? This is the time where I get to explain that flaw to you, the viewer. Chica used to have an incredibly glaring bug, that being, you would hear Chica laugh, signaling for you to move to the other side of the office to stare at her. So you do, but as you turn to look at her, she won't be there. Moments later, Nightmare Cupcake would kill you, almost like you ignored Chica altogether, but you know you didn't, and she just didn't appear. This would happen incredibly frequently. Fun fact, it was actually this exact bug that made Dawko give up on this night and skip it. I can only imagine how incredibly frustrating it must have been for players to pour so much time into this night, get to 6 AM, only to then die because Chica decided she didn't want to work. Absolutely foul. I never had to deal with this bug, so it appears to not be a problem anymore, but let me know in the comments if you've experienced the problems with this Havoc Chica bug. If you can somehow manage to keep your sanity intact through night 8, then you can finally move on to night 9. And let me tell you, it will feel incredibly underwhelming because night 8 is so much harder. Night 9 consists of Soul Cage, Havoc Puppet, Havoc Foxy, Golden Call, Molten Evil, and Am I Real? Can you figure out why this night is easier than the previous? Yeah, you're exactly right. It's because the boa isn't there to slam your dick in a car door. I don't have much to say about this night, honestly. The voice acting of the phone call is pretty questionable, but I'll talk more about the phone calls in a while. Night 10, however, I do have something to talk about. Remember how I said one of the nights in this game is a one-on-one boss fight? Yeah, this is that night. You go up against a character you haven't seen before named Garvey. Now, since Garvey is the only animatronic on this night, you may think it's going to be easy. And while I'd say it's still easier than night 8, it's definitely not easy by any means, so get that thought out of your head right now, bucko. So I'm going to warn you ahead of time that Garvey's mechanics are not technically difficult, but you'll understand why he's such a pain in the ass as this explanation goes on. Let's get one huge problem out of the way. You're only allowed to be looking at the cameras for a specific amount of time throughout the night. The more you look at the cameras, the darker your vision gets. It's definitely slow, but once it starts to get dark, you'll totally be able to tell. Garvey can attack from 3 different locations. Think of these locations as the left, the middle, and the right. Left and right are the most straightforward. You will have to listen for Garvey's laughter. This will give you a pretty clear indication of which side he's about to attack you from. At this point, you must open up the cameras. This is the part where I should mention that there's been a vent toggle button on the cameras this whole time. I never brought it up because it hasn't ever been important up until this point. After you pull up the camera and toggle the vents, you must click on the vent of the side Garvey is coming from. This will temporarily slow him down. At this time, you must very quickly run to the other side of the office and stare at the door he'll be coming from. Beating him to the door is key. You have to be staring at the door before Garvey peeks in, which can be challenging because you need to be fast. Like, really fucking fast. It will not feel remotely fair, but as you start to learn his speed, it will get slightly easier. Which, like, no fucking shit, that's how practice works. Insane that I have to explain to you how practicing works, and yet, here we are. Now, there will come a few times where you will hear his laughter in both of your ears. At this time, all you have to do is look straight up at the ceiling. You'll be able to see him staring back at you. Keep staring until he disappears, and you'll be good to continue. Honestly, the best part of this night is that you don't have to deal with Golden Call. God fucking damn, I hate that stupid ass animatronic bitch. But if you can manage to hunker down and deal with all of the garbage for long enough, you'll be able to beat night 10. But what happens then? Well, a cutscene plays. At our desk, we will be able to see a heart on the table for some reason. As we're confused, wondering why it's there, Garvey shatters the window behind us and begins chasing us through the building. We get trapped near a door and enter one final spacebar mashing minigame. The screen cuts to black and we're shown a gravestone of a John Wright, stating brat, scum, waste of air. So, that might seem confusing to you, so I suppose it's time I explain a bit about the lore, huh? Bear with me, as this is not one of my strong suits. So that John Wright on the tombstone is us. We've been playing as John Wright, as is mentioned in the Night 1 phone call. A man by the name of Peter is the phone guy, and he's the one calling us throughout the nights. He claims he used to be a security guard at Freddy Fazbear's. On Night 1, Peter explains that we're dead and in a sort of purgatory, with several monsters roaming the buildings. And these monsters are supposedly our childhood friends. The reason why we're in a Freddy Fazbear's-like location is because our mind shapes the purgatory based off of the things we've seen, which could suggest we either worked at a Fazbear's location before, or at least have a strong tie to one. Peter says we can escape this purgatory, but he needs our help. He says to grab an audio tape that should be on the desk next to the fan. This is also where we learn that there is a tape that we need to collect on each night. All tapes, aside from the first, will appear randomly on one of the cameras, and I'll get into these tapes later. On Night 2, Peter explains his theories about why we're being hunted by the animatronics. He believes that someone or something tried to manifest these ghosts into physical bodies. That attempt clearly failed, which is why all of the characters look so fucked. Peter believes that because we are ghosts, we have a plasma of sorts that the animatronics need to survive, and that's why they're trying to eat us up like a gourmet steak. We don't get the next meaningful piece of information from Peter until Night 5, where he tells us that Golden Call is his own physical remains. That means we've identified one of the animatronics trying to attack us, and we'll soon be able to find out who everyone else is as well, but we can cover that later. Peter tells us that the tapes we've been collecting are memories from our traumatic childhood. Peter mentions how an ominous he is also on these tapes, and I'm willing to bet that this he is Garvey. Peter thinks that collecting all of these tapes will allow our friends to move on and become regular ghosts, not being trapped in this purgatory with us anymore. On Night 6, Peter explains to us that he has tapes too in his version of the purgatory, and that both his memories and ours are in one way or another tied to Freddy's locations. He says he missed a few of his tapes because you only get one attempt. The first 10 days in the purgatory decide your fate. Missing one tape is the difference between a chance at escape and spending eternity fending off your suffering dead friends stuck inside of robotic bodies. Peter begs us to collect the tapes and free everyone because he can't anymore. On Night 7, Peter says the animatronic sleep cycles are all out of whack. He's been doing this for years while stuck here and was able to find a pattern with their sleep cycles. But out of nowhere, once we came here, those cycles started to change for some reason. Peter mentions he found a key and tried to use it on the exit door, but it didn't work. He says he'll update us as soon as he can. On Night 8, we get some pretty crucial information. Peter has found another key, and he believes something may happen soon. He says we probably don't have any keys in our purgatory because he thinks the keys are linked to a specific trauma he suffered. He also thinks he knows why the animatronic sleep cycles are messed up. Apparently, we brought something into this world, and it's big, with loud footsteps causing the characters to wake up when they're not supposed to. Peter says that if this thing we brought in is what he thinks it is, that we're all sorts of fucked. And of course, knowing what we already know, we can take a pretty good guess at who that might be. Night 9 is where we get to hear Peter's final moments. The monster we let enter this world is exactly who Peter thought it was: Garvey. Garvey has been tearing all of the monsters in Peter's purgatory into pieces. Peter knows that we apparently know who Garvey is. He tells us he's hiding behind the curtains where Foxy is, and that Garvey is coming for him. He tells us to get the keys, and the call ends. The two keys he's mentioned can be found. The first on Night 10 in the same location where you find the tape on camera 5. The second key requires me to tell you about a night I have yet to mention, Night 11. aka Nightmare. No matter how good you are at FNAF games, nothing will prepare you for just how surprisingly difficult this night really is. They cranked the AI for these characters on this night up to 10,000. Holy shit, it's insane. From 10 a.m. to 5 a.m., you go up against Havoc Freddy, Havoc Chica, Havoc Foxy, Havoc Puppet, Golden Call, The Boa, Soul Cage, and Molten Evil all at the same time. This has to be one of the most stressful challenges I've ever attempted. It is ridiculous. The sheer speed you have to even get close to beating this night is ridiculous. You quite literally have no time to rest for even a second. There is constantly something happening, and it's enough to give any grown adult a seizure and kill them instantly. But that's not even the worst part, no. The worst part comes at 5 a.m., when Garvey comes and kills everyone, and you're yet again thrown into a final, even more difficult Garvey boss fight for the last 2 hours of the night. If you thought he was quick before, boy, you better be Usain Bolt, because you need to be double in your speed. It is insane how fast you really have to be if you want to be able to complete this night. But if you can manage to beat this night while grabbing the second key that's on camera 8, congrats! You're almost ready to achieve the good ending. There are a few prerequisites required to get the good ending. The first is getting the 2 keys. Check. The second is collecting all of the tapes. Check. The third is beating night 11. Check. The fourth is listening to the 10th tape. Come to think of it, we actually haven't dove into the tapes yet, so we'll do that now. But here's that warning I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The topics that take place in these tapes are highly disturbing and are one of the main reasons why this game is so controversial. Viewer discretion is heavily advised. The 10 tapes you collect throughout Dormitibus tell the story of Garvey Wright, John Wright's, our character's, brother. The tapes go over Garvey's plan to murder several children and stuff them into the suits in his father's establishment. There's another minigame you can play in Dormitibus called Cardboard Theater, where you play as Garvey and live out a few of the scenarios mentioned in these tapes. Not only did Garvey murder several children, he also murdered his brother Peter. Yes, the same Peter who was calling us throughout the game. In the Cardboard Theater, we get to watch the spring lock failure happen to Garvey before he has the chance to kill John and leave no witnesses. Garvey's father soon sells the Cake Bear establishments because of the controversy, and it gets bought and turned into what we now know as Freddy Fazbear's. John gets a job at the Fazbear Fright location from Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and goes head-to-head with his brother, who in this game's story basically took William Afton's place as Springtrap. And as you know if you've played FNAF 3, John burns the building down and kills himself as well. After his death is where Dormitibus takes place. By collecting the tapes, collecting the keys, and beating Cardboard Theater, John is able to send Garvey to hell while setting the rest of the spirits of his dead friends and brother free. Dxtr, that sounds pretty normal for a FNAF-style game, I hear you saying. Why did you tell me that viewer discretion was advised? Well, that's because of the contents of Tape 3, and a specific news clipping that you see near the end of the game. In Cardboard Theater, you will need to recollect the 2 keys you collected before while playing. At the end of this minigame, Cake Bears will be unlocked, acting as the final 12th night of Dormitibus. The only 2 characters present in this night are Cake Bear and Havoc Puppet. I won't spend too much time explaining this night since you only ever have to beat it once. Cake Bear will move around the map and make it to your desk. You can stall him by lighting the candle on his cake, but I'm not sure if I'd actually do that because it drains power. Once he gets super close to your desk, quickly pull up the camera and he should go away. Havoc Puppet can appear randomly on any camera and will block your view. Since watching Cake Bear is essential, you'll want to get rid of the puppet. Simply staring at the puppet will cause it to go away, but sitting in the cameras will cause the battery to drain incredibly quickly, so it's best to wait until the battery is fully charged before dealing with him. If the battery goes dead, Havoc Puppet will disable it, which will lead to an inevitable death to Cake Bear. After beating Night 12, you'll be greeted to the FNAF 4 box. You must use the 2 keys you've collected to open it, and several news clippings will be given to you, each detailing the gruesome murders of some of the children at the hands of Garvey. But I'll cover them in just a moment. Back to the tapes. I referenced Tape 3 being the most alarming of all of them. Rather than explain it to you, I'll just play it.
Oh my god! This is most certainly beginning to be fun. There's this hot 15-year-old that was part of the kids' friends group. You know, it was fun. She screamed, but nobody heard her. It was so much fun. She's in one of the suits now. Just a little more time until Fredbear's is going down as well. But hey, I'll find my ways to catch her at the others.
You may have a good idea as to what Garvey is referencing doing in this tape, but if you need any clarification, one of the news clippings will confirm your suspicions. It reads, "The Fredbear's establishment in town was recently closed because of an accident with the animatronical characters. The CEO is now selling the franchise just like the previous owner did. The dirt that has been shed onto the establishment increased even more, as the police found the remains of a 15-year-old female in the back of the establishment, stuffed into a suit. She was supposedly raped to death by a yet unknown killer. Connections to the incident at the previous establishment are already being drawn." This clipping right here, mixed with the excitement in the voice of Garvey in tape 3, is the sole reason why this game is so hated and is so disgusting. Almost everybody agrees that throwing rape into this story was completely unnecessary. Some may argue that depraved people will do depraved things like this, and it's odd to not acknowledge that terrible things like this really happen. And to a point, I understand your thought process. But to feel the need to add it to a game that will most definitely be played by children with no prior warning is insane. And it gets even worse when you dive into the person who made the decision to put this into the story, Blackout. Blackout has since left the internet, but a while after Dormitibus released, one of the members of the Radiance team responsible for games such as Treasure Island and Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese Rebooted posted an unlisted YouTube video going over Blackout's messages of harassment towards them. Soon after that video followed a Google document surfacing regarding Blackout's behavior, regarding joking about raping people, being hateful towards trans people, and a laundry list of other terrible things. But the most egregious thing that Blackout has done was the Discord messages that were released revealing him to have been grooming a 12-year-old girl, making jokes about Germany's lax age of consent laws, and at one point even sending nudes to this child, this 12-year-old girl. After all of this unfolded, Blackout went on a hate brigade full of harassment and eventually left the internet, thanking his supporters that he for some reason thought he had. Now going to his Game Jolt page reads one message. "Jesus Christ, just leave me be. I don't want to live in your heads rent-free. I've moved on, and you should as well. Bye." And with that, that's where the story of Dormitibus ends. A game that could have been something amazing, with a story that was really promising, soiled and ruined by a disgusting, perverted pedophile. Again, I encourage everyone to try their best to separate the art from the artist, but if you can't do that, then I'd recommend checking out the remake of Dormitibus that was made by some very talented creators if you're still interested in seeing what this game has to offer, minus all of the disgusting and unnecessary perversions. The FNAF Fanverse Initiative, an idea Scott Cawthon had that was so good. The ability to bring fan game devs of your games into a closer community and allow them to sell merchandise based off of your branding is an amazingly generous and incredible opportunity. Having amazing games come out of it, such as Joy of Creation, Five Nights at Candy's, and Pop Goes, each of these creators are very passionate in what they do, and it shows. Another game to come out of the fanverse is One Night at Flumpties 3, the third game in an incredibly designed series. But as something that has become all too familiar with FNAF fan games, as previously seen in games like Graveyard Shift at Freddy's and Dormitibus, the creators' morals and ethics of said games can be called into question. And sadly, the creator of this game, Jonachrome, had his turn on the chopping block that is the internet. Today, I'll be diving into Jonachrome's fantastic FNAF fan game series, all the goods, all the bads, and the disturbing accusations that had the light shined on them for all the public to see. Come with me as we explore the masterpiece of a FNAF game created by a deviant. One Night at Flumpties 1 is what you'd expect from an old FNAF fan game. It's pretty much just a recreation of FNAF 1, but this game did it differently. Something I think a lot of people could agree with me on is that One Night at Flumpties was ahead of its time. No other FNAF fan game was as well put together as Flumpties was. You could argue Five Nights at Candy's was, but I'm not talking about Candy's right now, am I? As the title suggests, this game only features one night, but don't let that make you think it'll be a cakewalk. This one night is up there in difficulty with nights 5 and 6s from the normal FNAF games, and the difficulty increases by the hour instead of the day. Before I dive into gameplay, however, I want to talk about how amazing this game really looks. There's a lot to be said about Jonachrome, and I'll be diving more into his character at the end of the video. But Jonachrome is an artist, and a damn good one at that. Every single location in this game has so much character put into it, especially the office. Sure, there's a lot of dead things, but ignore what it is for a second and just admire how well done the 2D art in this game really is. Not many FNAF games go for a 2D approach, and I really wish more did because I think it looks amazing. Look at Playtime with Percy for another example. That game is 2D and it looks incredible. Then look at another completely flawless and probably the best FNAF game ever designed with zero competition, FNAF Shitpost. Another game with 2D art that is fantastic, and I definitely have no bias over that game at all. This game did something no other was doing at the time, and it has aged like a fine wine. But now, let's jump butthole first into the gameplay. As mentioned already, this game only has one night. But dear God, it's a long one. Each hour of this night is a minute and a half, making the full night 9 minutes long, which is a crazy amount of time for a FNAF game where you need to have good nerve control. Just like FNAF 1, you have a power system. However, it's only affected by your doors, so feel free to camp the cameras as much as you'd like without the worry of draining your power, which I promise you'll be doing often, as this game is going to rail you in the asshole with encounters, and you'll have to stay on top of each character's location. Speaking of the characters, who are they? Nice segue, Dxtr. Thanks, Dxtr. The first guy we'll talk about is obviously Flumpty, the main attraction. Flumpty acts both as the Freddy of this game and the phone guy. At the beginning of the night, he tells you that his name is Flumpty and that he is immune to the plot and can transcend space and time. He goes on to tell you that he kidnapped you and brought you here to be friends, and that he's coming after you. And coming after you, he is. Holy shit. This guy moves at the speed of sound. Flumpty moves randomly across cameras with no pattern, and he can teleport wherever and whenever he likes. Which means, if you're unlucky like me, he can get to your office in about 15 fucking seconds after the night starts. That's awesome. I'm in for a shitty time, aren't I? I'm covering 3 games in this video? Can I get that confirmed? Can I? Hey, can you confirm that? Uh-huh. Yeah? Yeah, alright, fuck me. 3 games in the first 15 seconds already has me stressing. I love this. If you're unable to see Flumpty on any of the cameras, that means one of 2 things. Either 1, he's on the broken camera, which I'll talk about later, or 2, he's at your left door. If he's at your left door, just close it and bada bing bada boom, he can't get in. But something you'll immediately notice is that, unlike FNAF 1, there's no windows, so you won't be able to tell when he's left by just sitting in your office. So you'll have to constantly be checking the cameras to see where he is. And when he moves as fast as he does, it can get overwhelming quickly. Let's talk about our next freak, birthday boy Blam, or just Blam as I'll be calling him. Blam works very similarly to Flumpty, except he attacks the right door, and he can't teleport like a dick. He follows a set path to your right door. Just close it, watch the cameras to see when he leaves. I just queefed. That's all you have to do about him. Oh, and in case you're curious, he's also Usain fucking Bolt and moves around the building at Mach 30, so that's just awesome. The Beaver is up next on the chopping block, and yes, his name is just the Beaver. I guess Jonachrome gave up on names here, but that's okay. What does he do? The Beaver acts as this game's Foxy, which it honestly didn't even need because of how often you're checking the cameras, but who really cares? The Beaver is sitting on the toilet taking a big fat patty-whacker double-decker dump and reading a newspaper with several tasteful stories in it. Next to the toilet, you'll see a roll of toilet paper. Throughout the night, the more you fail to watch the Beaver, the smaller the roll of toilet paper will get. When he runs out of toilet paper, the Beaver will sprint at your right door. Also, quick side note, the Beaver has knife feet. I don't know why, it's just something interesting to note. Who's up next, huh? Who do I have in my sights? Boom! Grunkfuck, Grunkfuss the Clown. Arguably one of the most popular characters to come out of this series. Grunkfuss is the first character I've mentioned who doesn't start at the beginning of the night. Instead, he starts at 4 a.m. I love this clown's mechanic. It's incredibly cool. I should mention that this game deliberately doesn't tell you how to play, and it doesn't describe how any of the characters work, leaving you to figure it out yourself. I love this idea, and it can lead to you feeling pretty smart when you find a small detail that can help you figure out how a character works, and Grunkfuss is a perfect example. Grunkfuss doesn't show up on your cameras. Instead, he is only ever visible inside of your office. As the night goes on, he will become more and more visible via a hole in the wall of your office. Well, that doesn't sound fair, I hear you say, and I usually agree. Until you put your thinking cap on and realize there's a hint in this game that perfectly explains how Grunkfuss works. On camera 5, there's a hole in the ground with 30 eyes inside. That number is very important. Every time you lift your camera up, you'll notice that one of the 30 eyes have disappeared, and every time you pull your camera down, Grunkfuss becomes more visible. If his eyes reach 0, when you pull the camera down, Grunkfuss will grunk fuck your shit up. I think this is such a cool little hint this game gives you to explain how he works. You could easily play through the whole game and never piece this together. This is something I really love when games do, and I'd really like to see more of it. But we've still got more to talk about, buddy. Let's move on to the Red Man. Red Man becomes active on hour 3 and starts on camera 3. You'll notice throughout the game up until this point that camera 3 has never been visible. That's because Red Man isn't technically visible on the cameras. Whichever camera he's on will be blacked out, which lets you know where he is. Red Man slowly moves from camera 3 to your left door where you'll be able to see him and close it. Just like the other door characters, you'll have to watch the camera for when he leaves. This brings me back to a point I made when talking about Flumpty. If Flumpty or Blam are on the same camera as Red Man, they too won't be visible. Meaning, there's a possibility you won't be able to find them, and a possibility that you'll shit your pants as I did when I couldn't find Flumpty because he was camping out with Red Man. So that was fun. The final character I have to briefly mention is Golden Flumpty, and I say briefly because there's not much to talk about. Sometimes you'll see him in your office, and when you do, you have to quickly pull up the cameras. If you don't, a dead sandwich is what you'll be turned into. In terms of characters, that's all One Night at Flumpties has to offer. This game can be brutally hard. Obviously, like any FNAF game with enough practice, you'll be able to beat this game like clockwork. But hot damn, your first run through might very well be pretty difficult, especially considering you're not taught how to do a goddamn thing. But that's the first game. I'd personally say that it's fantastic. But what if I told you the second game is even better? Let's waste no time and jump into it. One Night at Flumpties 2 is visually just as great as the first. Each setting looks fantastic. The game is significantly harder than the first, mainly because there's much more to focus on. To start, this game's phone call actually explains the rules, like a little bit. You're gonna have to do a lot of trial and error, but hey, it's still more than the first game gave us. The phone call this time around is a short song, which, that's just lovely, isn't it? The song explains if our lights are off, we're safe, and if they're not, we're about to get our cheeks spread apart so hard they rip off. So, why is the light so important? Well, let's do what we do best and go over each threat one by one. Let's start with Flumpty. As he was in the last game, he's pretty basic in terms of mechanics. Like in the first game, he teleports around wherever and whenever he pleases, so don't think for a goddamn second you're safe, because you're not. He's hungry for ass, and you got a whole lot of it. He a hungry bitch. If at any point you can't find him on the cameras, he will be right outside of your door in the hallway, and in a few seconds, will pop his head in and give you a blumpkin. Characters looking into your office actually brings up one of this game's central mechanics, which I think is really cool. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see an exposure meter. If at any point that meter fills all the way up, it's time for Flumpty and his friends to eat toast off your ass without the toast. When Flumpty peeks his head in, he will have his hands over his eyes to play a quick game of peekaboo with you. Be lucky that he's forgiving like this, because no other character from this point forward will be. While he has his eyes covered, your exposure meter will not increase. This gives you about half a second to turn the lights to your room off. After a few seconds, he will leave and you can turn your lights back on. But before we continue, let's go over what else happens when you turn your lights off. Let me quickly go over the camera and something I noticed about these games that I really like. Notice how in the first game, the camera didn't waste any power. Well, in this game it does, but it does it in a much more engaging way than it does in other FNAF games. Rather than just lowering an arbitrary number, you'll notice on the bottom of your screen you also have a laptop power meter, your laptop being your cameras. While your laptop is up, that meter will decrease, and when you put the laptop back down, the meter will slowly charge and increase again. I love this mechanic. It's still consequential to sit on your cameras, but it still keeps you in control. These games have such good balancing. I struggle to find other FNAF games to match in this department. If your laptop meter is to go completely empty, it will forcibly close and you'll have to wait for it to charge all the way back up before opening it. And when you do, you'll have to wait for the laptop to reboot. This may not seem like a very big deal, but when watching the cameras is as important as it is in this game, having to wait those 10 seconds can feel like an eternity. But back to turning the lights off. When the lights are turned off, you cannot access your cameras, and your laptop will not charge. This is one of those multiple ways this game keeps you from sitting alone in the dark. Something I think all of you chronic gooners should take note of. Blam Birthday Bitch Boy is next. He, like in the last game, works almost the same as Flumpty, moves around a set path, goes to your office, takes a sneak peek at your bits. However, this motherfucker don't play no games. No peekaboo for this guy. Once he's looking, your exposure meter starts to climb. This leads to you needing to watch the cameras and track his location, because even multiple small slivers over how godforsakenly long this night is will start to add up and lead to your asshole looking like a cave. Blam increases your meter faster than Flumpty does. Even though Flumpty is literally a chaos god of death, he increases your meter slower than any other character in this game. Something I think says a lot about his character. I'd say he's just a little harmless guy, but he also has canonically killed 1 billion birds with one stone. No, I'm not joking. Grunk Fuckass the Clown is also pretty similar to how he was in the first game. Psych! I fucking lied, bitch! Go look in the mirror at how fucking stupid your face is. You actually thought for a second I wasn't gonna lie straight to your stupid, dumb, ugly face, but I did. Anyways, Funko Pop the Clown can be seen crouched on camera too. Around 2 a.m. he will become active, with a hole appearing on your wall and a patience number appearing on camera too, and quickly decreasing. Once Grunkle Stan the Clown's patience wears thin, he'll pop his head through the hole in your wall and dramatically begin increasing your exposure meter. I'm talking Tyson Gay levels of quickness, and I say Tyson Gay instead of Usain Bolt because there's one character who increases it even faster. Eyesore is technically another character returning from the first. Remember the eyes that appeared in the hole on the floor that showed how many times you could flick up the camera before Fuckhead the Clown would ream you from behind? Yeah, that's him. That's Eyesore. Eyesore will start on camera 1, but won't be active until 4 a.m. Keep in mind, each hour in this game is long as fuck. He'll make his way to your office and peer in. When I tell you, the speed at which this bastard eviscerates your exposure meter is faster than the speed at which I bolt to the toilet after Indian food. I'm not lying. I suppose it makes sense given how many eyes he has, but like, damn! Don't let this guy eye bang you for too long, no matter how sexually attracted you are to it. The last returning character we have to bring up is Redman. But Dxtr, what about the beaver? He fucking died. He fell into the toilet and fucking died. Are you happy? I didn't want to have to tell you, but you pulled my leg. Dick? Anyways, Redman. At random points during the night, warning pop-ups will appear on your laptop. If you're not in your laptop, it will be signified next to your camera button with a warning sign like the music box from FNAF 2. When you see this warning message, it will be accompanied with a loading bar. If the loading bar fully increases, you'll be as dead as disco. All you have to do is click cancel. If you lose to Redman in this game, I have no sympathy for you. You have to try and lose to this guy. What about new characters? Well, there's only one, but he's pretty sick. The Owl. The Owl will appear on your cameras taking a fat-ass nap. Throughout the night, he will open his eyes and eventually leave the urinal he's perched on. When he does, you'll have to quickly check your vent cameras to see which vent he's about to assault you through. Once you know, you'll have to close the vent in your office in accordance with which side the Owl is attacking you from. If you don't, you guessed it, ask buffet and you're the main course. The vents don't waste any power, but only one of them can be closed at a time. So there's that. Additionally, you can close the vents even if your lights are off, which is incredibly generous and really just adds to the flow and pattern this game has. The final character I want to talk about is Golden Flumpty. So I guess I technically lied when I said Redman was the last recurring character, but fuck you. He works the same way as he did in the first game. Sometimes you'll see him in your office, either quickly turn the lights off or pull up your camera and he'll leave. Whoopity-doo, lore or something, I don't really know. That's all One Night at Flumpty's 2 has going for it. Well, it has a difficulty mode called Hard Boiled, which drastically increases the difficulty of the night, but it doesn't change any fundamental game mechanics, so I don't think it's worth diving into. One Night at Flumpty's 2 is such an enormous step up from the first, and that's saying a lot considering how amazing the first game really was. With the third game right around the corner, I can't wait to see what Jonachrome came up with. Oh, did I say right around the corner? Sorry, I meant 6 fucking years later. One Night at Flumpty's 3 released in 2021. Jonachrome made it clear he was never interested in making another Flumpties game after 2, but the only reason he did is because Scott reached out to him for the Fanverse initiative. So what does 3 have to offer, and does it live up to the last 2? Flumpties 3 is just like the last in one way. The art is phenomenal. Every single scene is fantastic and full of references. It makes the game very fun to look at. The office in this game is very frozen. You'll notice a thermometer in the corner of your screen. It's very important that you keep yourself warm and not let that meter reach empty, or you'll freeze to death like a bitch. You can go over to the furnace to have it slowly increase, and you'll need to be doing this throughout the night. How about the threats though? Returning from the last 2 games, we have Blam, who works very similarly to how he does in previous games. He'll move around the building in a set path and make it to your door, which in this game is really just a hallway. The cameras don't have power, so you should be camping them as often as you can. When Blam gets to your door is when we have to talk about a new mechanic, your camera. On the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a camera button with 20 uses. That's right, you can only use this camera 20 times throughout the night before it won't work anymore. So you better make sure you're keeping track of where every character is, because you don't want to waste any of these flashes. When Blam gets to your door, all you have to do is flash the hall and he'll run away. But be aware, there's no visual or auditory cue to signify that he's there, which is why watching the cameras is so important. Next, we've got another returning character, which by the way, there are no new characters, so I'll stop mentioning this. Anyways, the next character is Grunk Punk-Ass Slut Bitch the Clown. He does literally the exact same thing as Blam, but with one key difference. You do not want to flash him when he's in the hallway. The flash makes him scared and he'll pee his pants. That makes him embarrassed and he'll have to kill all the witnesses, and sadly for you, you're the only witness, so guess it's time to die. But being serious, while Grunkfuss is technically easier to deal with than Blam, he really makes you make sure you know where everyone is, because one false flash and it's game over. Next up on the chopping block, as I've said for the second time this video, is the Red Man. He becomes active at 1 AM and will make his way towards your furnace. On his furnace room camera, you'll see a warning telling you to stay away from your furnace. If you go to warm up by the furnace while this message is present, he'll eat your ass from the back, which I know some of you dirty freaks want, but for the rest of us normal people is something we'd prefer to prevent. I actually think this is a really nice mechanic. Something to keep you away from the only safe thing you have is super interesting. Knock knock, who's there? I don't really know, I don't usually answer my door, but we're talking about the eyesore next. He becomes active at 4 AM and actually can't be seen on the cameras. So how are you supposed to defend yourself? Well, lucky for you, you can actually see him in your hallway. Unlike the other characters, however, you'll actually have to flash eyesore twice to make him go away. And because your camera has a cooldown, this can lead to a deadly combo with Grunkussy. You'll need to make absolutely sure he's not in the hall when you go to flash eyesore. What about the owl? I hear you asking. Well, a better question would be, what about the beaver? Better yet, how about both of them, because they're both here in this game merged together as one in the form of the bee-vowel. Talk about a freak of nature, am I right? Chat, if I ever end up looking like this freak, please pull the plug, I won't be mad. Anyways, the bee-vowel starts at 2 AM and will appear on camera 3 in the hot tub. He will gradually climb out of the tub and crawl into your vent. This brings up the other side of your office where you can actually see the vent. This vent functions the exact same way the other door does. When you know the bee-vowel is in the vent, all you have to do is flash him with your camera and he'll go away. But this does lead to a split path that you'll have to watch just as much as the door path, which can become stressful as the night progresses. Finally, we have to talk about Golden Flumpty, who is just as uneventful as he was in the last 2 games. When you see him on your cameras, you can't pull down the camera unless you switch to another camera he isn't on. Otherwise, he kills you. And that's all the threats. Survive until 6 AM and the final game in the Flumpties franchise is over. In all honesty, I think this game isn't nearly as good as Flumpties 2. I think that might be because of the fact that Jonachrome... Huh? What? What about Flumpty? I didn't talk about him? Oh, yeah, about that. Flumpty is pretty pissed that you survived as long as you should have, and is even more pissed at his friends for not being able to kill you. Being a god, Flumpty sets the time back to 12 AM, murders all of his friends, and comes to get you himself. I lied. We're not even close to being done. Let's talk about this game's second night, Flumpty Night. You'll immediately notice some new stuff, but I'll talk about them as they become important. In this night, after killing all his friends, Flumpty transcends space and time and is able to morph his body and appear in multiple places at a time. He replaces all of his friends and takes a majority of the mechanics of the night. Let's go over each Flumpty clone together. It can get a bit confusing, and this night is a clusterfuck, but I'll hold your hand and explain everything as best I can. And let me tell you, my palms are clammy. The first clone to talk about is Another Flumpty. Yes, his name is literally, quote, Another Flumpty, end quote. This guy is the exact same as Birthday Boy Blam. Fireside Flumpty replaces the Red Man. Spider Flumpty, aka fucking animated Flumpty, again, that is literally his name, replaces the B vowel. But something cool I want to mention about Spider Flumpty is that he is gorgeously animated. Like, look at his animation when he crawls through the vent. It's gorgeous. Now we need to talk about the Flumpty clones that have their own mechanic in this game. Except not really. All-Seeing Eye Flumpty acts exactly like Grunkfuck does in Flumpties 2. On camera 6, he'll have a patience timer, and when it reaches 0, he'll appear in your office through a hole in your wall. Also, you'll notice on this night that an exposure meter literally slides in from the side of the screen during the night, and All-Seeing Eye Flumpty will increase it. You get rid of him by flashing your camera at him. This night is about to get a lot more insane, I promise. Flumpty.exe replaces what the Red Man does from Flumpties 2. Occasionally, a program will appear on your camera, and if you don't cancel it in time, then it's time for an ass-eating buffet. Shadow Flumpty works just how Grunkinky does in Flumpties 1. The more you lower your camera, the further and further through positions he gets in your office. Lower it too many times, and he's gonna go spelunking in your asshole. I'm talking pounding ass pickles. Door Flumpty is where the 2 extra doors in your office come into play. He'll appear on either camera 8A or camera 8B. You can stop him by turning on your laser doors to keep him out. Also, you'll notice you have door power at the top of your screen, so you know, just something else you'll need to keep track of. Are you stressed yet? We're not done yet. While on your camera, sometimes you'll notice something really cool. Flumpty will fucking move the cameras 8A and 8B around to change which door that Door Flumpty attacks from. The first time I saw this while playing, I was freaking out. It's honestly such a cool idea that I've never seen done before. Finally, we have to talk about Virtual Boy Flumpty. Once 3 AM hits, if you look at your camera, you'll see a new section of the map that was never there before, slowly lower from the top of the screen and add 2 new cameras to the game for you to keep track of. I want you to keep in mind, all the other bullshit I've already mentioned is still happening right now. Virtual Boy Flumpty will make his way to camera 10, which you'll see has a door power switch. If you let Virtual Boy Flumpty get into this room, he will flip the switch, permanently turning off the laser doors you use to keep Door Flumpty out. So how do you stop Virtual Boy Flumpty? Well, this is really awesome. You have to close another set of doors on the fucking cameras. I swear to God I'm smoking crack, because this is insane. There is actually so much shit going on this night. It's so much fun to play once you get into a groove. This is something that Jonachrome does that not many other FNAF creators can replicate. Although all of this is happening at the same time, you will almost never feel like completing it is based on luck. Everything flows together so smoothly, it's just super fun to play. Midway through 4 AM, a new song will start playing and the true boss fight begins. This final stretch is so much fun. When the song starts playing, you'll notice every single bit of your UI start to change to completely random intervals constantly. However, all of the systems still work. Sure, you can't visually see where your thermometer is at, but it's still decreasing and you will still have to manage it. Flumpty sings a little song, and if you manage to get to 6 AM, the game truly ends. We get one last final cutscene where Flumpty finally lets us leave, and we see what the world has become while we've been trapped with him. Nothing but a wasteland, and we begin to question if escaping was even worth it at all. And the One Night at Flumpty's universe comes to a close. One Night at Flumpty's was one of the earliest FNAF fan games made, and I personally think it still holds up as one of the best in the world. Each game got better than the last, which is something that sadly doesn't happen with most series. I'm very glad that Jonachrome had such good attention to detail to make sure that the games never got stale. As much as I'd love to see more games from the Flumpties franchise, I think it's best that 3 remains the final game, and I think Jonachrome thinks that way too. Flumpties 3 finally showed us the extent of Flumpty's power with an amazing boss battle at the end, and he even honored his word by letting you leave once you beat him. This is such an incredible ending to such an incredible game, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I think One Night at Flumpty's is as close to perfection as a FNAF game can be, and it truly shows. But of course, with the good comes the bad, and it's time to talk about Jonachrome himself and the accusations that were thrown at him. 8 days after the release of OneNet at Flumpties 3, a user on Twitter posted a twit longer stating the following. Hello, my name is unimportant in this matter and I'd rather stay anonymous. I love this community. I absolutely have been a part of the FNAF fandom ever since 2014. The point of this is to try to make it safer for everyone and minors. Don't go attacking Scott over this. He had absolutely no way of knowing who Jonachrome really is. I also strongly insist that minors stay within their age groups when meeting friends in the same fandom online, whether artists or not. With that said, this is my testimony coming clean about Jonachrome. After seeing the release of OneNet at Flumpties 3 and how Jonachrome has insisted on staying within the community and fanverse, I cannot stand by and allow him to continue being within this fandom, and I really should have come forward much earlier when I initially found out. I was involved with plenty of his group DMs from 2016 to 2018. A girl by the name of Emily was 13 to 14 at the time, and he came all out about his relationship with her. Within group DMs we've had, Jonachrome was already in his 20s. Charges cannot be pressed as Emily would need to do it herself as she would now be 19. I have evidence to prove this with links to all of it, and witness statements, and messages from Jonachrome himself. This man should not be praised at all, and I hope this helps people see him for what he really is, and why he should be removed altogether from any community he has a high stance in. It can be gathered that Jonachrome stated he was dating this girl, but was not going to do anything sexual until she was of legal age, which some would constitute as grooming. In my personal opinion, none of that is as damning as John's own messages. In one message, he flat out admits his plan to marry Emily, who, keep in mind, is a child. Jonachrome also mentioned how they'd been dating for 2.5 years, and considering how she had her date of birth set at 2002, this would have made her about 14 years old when they started dating. It's also very clear that Jonachrome knew that what he was doing was wrong, as in 2017 he was very concerned about the net neutrality laws, which he thought would cause conflict with his being able to communicate with her. The twitlonger wasn't up for long when Jonachrome responded. The title of his response stated that both he and Emily knew that this would happen at one time or another. His response reads, "Well, if my statement means anything, here it goes. I'm not a child groomer and I'm not a pedophile. Plain and simple. I wouldn't dream of manipulating or abusing or exploiting anyone, much less minors. And the twitlonger has no evidence to suggest that I did. It comes across as spiteful to me more than it comes across as a post made out of legitimate concern for anyone's safety. That said, I can't deny that the screenshots are real. When Emily and I met, dating wasn't even a consideration for obvious reasons. We were friends who got along really well. My first relationship was with someone my age, which only lasted a few months because we didn't communicate very well. That was when I started questioning what was really important in a relationship and what actually makes two people compatible. I realized that Emily and I share the same religious beliefs, we have similar sense of humor, there's a lot of overlap in our interests and hobbies, and we could both comfortably talk about a lot of things. We both felt like maybe we were meant to be together and were just born at the wrong times. We started talking, making it clear right away that there would be nothing sexual about our conversations and that we wouldn't meet in person until she was at least 18. We enjoyed each other's company, just talking and hanging out. Occasionally we'd watch movies together. For a long time, I didn't see the harm in it. I always put her needs before my own, always claiming to do what was best for her, and in a way, I thought I was saving her from experiencing the same heartbreak I did. This year, 2021, would have been the year we met in person, with her age at 19. But this was also when I learned she was starting to have doubts about our relationship. She knew I didn't mean any harm, while also saying I had effectively prevented her from exploring other romantic options by approaching her when I did. I'd like to say I knew better, but until that moment, I kinda didn't. I'd thought I'd done everything right, and I gambled on the assumption that if we were meant to be together, it wouldn't have mattered in several more years. But the reality is, I didn't give her enough time to grow, and I shouldn't have even entertained the idea. It's a mistake I've made the one time, and I'll never make it again for as long as I live. For anyone who wishes to hear the victim side of the story, Emily and I are on good terms, and she's planning on making her own response to this as soon as she can. Regardless, I was wrong for pursuing a relationship with her. I can't change the past, but I hope that my story can at least serve as an example for others. Please, whether you're an adult or a minor, don't make the same mistake I did. You might have the best intentions and the utmost confidence in a potential relationship with someone out of your age range, and you might not see any red flags, but that's no excuse. It's not worth it. Minors should be especially careful in an online space because there are people out there who want to take advantage of it. This could have ended a lot worse. Stay safe. Later after that, Emily responded herself, and her response reads, "Jonachrome is not guiltless in this. As I'm an adult now, I'm completely aware of that. but he is genuinely a kind-hearted person who just did something to himself that he shouldn't have. As a minor at the time, of course I was super dumb and naive, but as an adult, Jonachrome was 100% responsible for his action. He has apologized to me several times, and I truly still believe he's a good person. We even talk on good terms even though we're separate, but he has recognized that he fucked up. So please, as the victim, leave the man alone. Let me clarify. He has never tried to solicit anything from me. He has never asked me to do anything I didn't want to. It was not good to consider us having a romantic relationship when I was very explicitly not old enough. But keep in mind, we've always been friends. Jonachrome is easygoing, fun to talk to. We used to watch movies together and talk about what we liked about them. We used to draw cute pictures for each other. We used to talk about the games we'd like. Morally, it was wrong to have romance between us, but it was innocent too. To say that it was grooming is where it becomes gray, because I feel like it was definitely unintentional somehow. That sounds like I'm confused, but I know why that is. If he had malice intent, he would have been much more persistent than he was. But no, he's not dangerous whatsoever. If Jonachrome attempts something like this again, yeah, I don't think I could trust him. He has done something awful, but that doesn't mean he himself is awful. What matters is how he moves on. If he's learned from this to know not to go any further from what he did to me. I was the one who confronted him about how our relationship would cause too many problems as an adult, and that's why I broke ties. Over those 6 years, I can say confidently that I care about the man's well-being. I don't want him to suffer. Let me say this again. Legally, he has not committed any crime. He's shown no clear intent to harm me, nor has he sent any harmful content to a minor. He is innocent in that respect, but that doesn't mean I'm excusing it. I'm just saying I, the victim, am okay. I'm also aware that no sexual stuff until legal is wrong and gross, because that does constitute as grooming. But there was still genuinely a relationship between us. Not romantically, but a friendship that we had. I can confidently say Jonachrome was a good friend. Yes, there was romance. It wasn't good by any means. He and I both knew there was something wrong with it, but I tried to pretend that it wasn't there. But please do not harass him. I can tell he's doing better because he talked to me before this mess got out. As for the person who exposed Jonachrome, I do not wish to be involved in this. I do not care about this anymore. I've moved on and so has he. If I am his only victim, then don't make any more accusation. I know this situation better than anyone. To everyone, don't say, I'm sorry this happened to you, because Jonachrome is already sorry, and to me, that's enough. I don't need your sympathy. Spread my response so people know what actually happened. As an adult, I'm not pressing any charges against Jonachrome, and I truly hope he's living his best life. He's been seeking therapy, and I do hope he'll make it out alive in this. His multiple apologies to me are proof of his self-improvement. I'm hoping this is enough. I do not want to make another statement, and frankly, I'm pissed that it even came out because he's hopefully not going to do this again, and I'm not traumatized from it. If he does it again, go ahead, talk about it. Otherwise, leave us alone. Jonachrome eventually made one more statement, which is way too long for me to cover in this video, but he basically says that he didn't groom Emily, because grooming requires sexual intent, which he claims he never had while in the relationship. John had been gone for years, but has actually, as of writing this, released a video on his gaming channel 3 weeks ago. He says he's been in therapy and is looking forward to working on more projects. As far as I'm aware, we still haven't heard from Emily or the anonymous person who brought this to light, but everyone has seemed to move on and they have accepted their faults and took accountability. While what Jonachrome did was wrong, no doubt about it, I truly think he's good at heart. I and many others all hope that this was a one-time thing, and I hope that this was a very clear wake-up call to never do something like this again, and it appears that that is the case. I and many others are excited to see what Jonachrome has in store for us, even if it has nothing to do with the One Night at Flumpties series. One Night at Flumpties is truly an amazing game, made by someone with a regrettable past. Even if you choose to not follow Jonachrome anymore, these games are a perfect example of being able to separate the art from the artist, and recognize that Jonachrome made some terrible decisions, but at the end of the day, the work he produced is something that will likely never be able to be replicated again. But that's all I have to say about One Night at Flumpties. Let me know what you think about these games in the comments below. In my Rainbow Friends video, I asked you all what your favorite Roblox horror game was and why. My favorite comment is this one by Ryko Janes. They go into deep detail about why they liked Pressure, and I don't have the time to read the whole comment, but I recommend you do. My girlfriend also really likes this game, and it might be the next subject of my next Roblox video. I'm still stuck between Pressure and Doors. Help me choose in the comments. I've heard that call to actions actually cause people to subscribe, so we're gonna try it for the first time on this channel. Subscribe to the channel right now to be considered the Sigma Goon God, and like the video even though it doesn't affect the performance of the video at all. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Dexter, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!